For the upcoming right-hander, brake 30 meters later and ease off the pressure.
Are you spending a lot of time looking for setups and struggling for faster lap times? Are you tired of searching online for answers? Would you like to get setups, analysis and tutorials from some of the best sim racers in the world like Raoul Faller, Mitchell de Jong, Martin Krunker, Josh Rogers and many more? If so, virtualracingschool.com is the answer you've been looking for. VRS data packs provide hot laps from our professional coaches for you to analyse and replicate. They provide tutorials that walk you through the fastest laps and what the pros did to achieve the best times. And they provide the setups you need to ensure your car is competitive in both oval and road racing. If you're ready to get faster and reach more podiums sooner than later, just go to virtualracingschool.com and sign up for a free account today.
Hello, good evening and welcome ladies and gentlemen to another round of absolutely epic racing action in the one and only Evolution Sim Racing GT3 Championship Season 8 as brought to you on the premier sim racing platform available only on PC known as iRacing and proudly powered by Trophy AI. We are here of course for another round of racing, another week of it in Split B, while simultaneous splits ongoing at the same time, and well of course you've got the option of tuning in to two splits of racing tonight, but we're covering all your racing action from the Premier and Evo classes in Split B, and we're here for round number 6 of 10 at the Road Atlanta circuit. Located in the American state of Georgia near the town of Brazelton, this circuit is akin to the ultimate rollercoaster ride of road racing for the simple reason that over the best part of what is its 2.54 mile length and 12 corners is a circuit that has rapid fire elevation changes that they come as quickly as they go and sometimes even interspersed into corner apexes. As a result, the majority of the corners around here are blind at the apex, and those that are not blind are absolutely killer in terms of the thrill they provide when our drivers absolutely roar their way into them and go hard on the brakes in order to take the corner and make it way out. It's going to be momentum based racing as quick as it comes here, and with an incredibly long back straight as well to the best part of what is a mile. Well, there's plenty of opportunities for battling not just on that straight but into the corners, the chicanes and also the sweeping bends, and all of it put together means that for our drivers tonight they've got to be driving on the absolute limit if they want to take victory here in what will be our feature race round. And of course, at the limit is where you're going to see the mistakes happen. And even the smallest of mistakes here at Road Atlanta can be completely race-altering and see a driver go from hero on their way to victory, sunny to zero and floundering at the back of the field. But where are my manners as we all welcome you to this broadcast live from circuit side. You're tuning in right now via the official Evolution Sim Racing YouTube channel. Indeed, if you go to youtube.com and search for Evolution Sim Racing or ESR, we welcome you guys and girls tuning in there. And of course, I must say hello to those of you who already said hello in the YouTube chat, including Laura Jane. Once again, good evening to you, Laura, and also to Katie Kitty Eames, and I'm doing very well, thank you, Katie. But more importantly, how are you doing today? As of course you'll be tuning in, as I can see there in the chat, mentioning, cheering on was the Verano Academy drivers of Christian and Craig. But for those who haven't said hi, don't be shy, feel free to say hi for the simple reason we don't bite here at Evolution Sim Racing. The only biting we do is what our drivers do, and that is biting hard on those carbon ceramic brake discs as they go into the heaviest of braking zones each and every round and do battle into corner after corner. But as we get ready to go racing today, all your racing action will be brought to you by myself. My name is Paul Walsh, also known as TX141 or Brit in a Spit, depending on what media you follow me on, and I'll be bringing you all your racing action throughout the entirety of the season as it unfolds. And well, tonight of course we're being round number 6, it's a feature race round, but let's give you a recap of the season so far and what we've got still lying in wait, because we are now into the second half of the season and we are continuing the run of American circuits, because last time out of course we were at the circuit of the Americas, the Grand Prix circuit on the 1st of May there for what was a double header of 2x30 minute race rounds, 2 sprint races there, and in the US of A in the Texan State circuit we've got to see some brilliant battling up and down the field, and indeed some championship changing battling in both our classes, whereby as we'll see very shortly in the Premier class it was all about what was the fast charger Christopher Starsmore, who finally brought home his first victory of the season in the second race of the day and almost made it a perfect score, but despite not making it quite a perfect score, still had a perfect way to wrap up the first half of his championship campaign, and now has the momentum truly on his side as he tries to chase down Ricardo Luiz Pereira and also Mathew Croft. Meanwhile, in what is the Evo class, The story saw Grant Miller once again absolutely run rampant in terms of scoring the majority of the points and taking the lead, as we'll see shortly, from Wesley Van Rens, who by comparison had a day to forget, much like at Road America. And for Van Rens right now, he needs to stop the rock quickly for the simple reason that championship campaign is suddenly unfolding in front of ours and his eyes. But of course, many will be keeping their eyes on Andre Montine, who absolutely was brilliant at the Circuit of the Americas in the Evo class, incorrectly listed as a Premier class driver, and we do apologise for that. We'll talk about the permutations as a result of that very shortly and how wins were incorrectly attributed last time out at the Circuit of the Americas. But Andre Montine has moved into third place, and after taking his first victory in the Evo class at the Circuit of the Americas, well, can he potentially find his way into that championship fight as well? Well, it is today, the 8th of May, that we're at the Road Atlanta's full course layout, and after today we're making our way to Le Mans in a week's time for the French circuit. And well, on the 15th of May, it's going to be a change of who's going to be the master or mistress of the wet, as we'll have two 30-minute sprint races there, after which we'll then make our way back to the United States of America for what will be a cloudy day at the Sebring International Raceway Circuit in the US state of Florida on the 22nd of May. On the 29th of May, we head to Italy for a doubleheader, and it will be starting at the Imola Grand Prix circuit with round number 9. And then after two 30-minute sprint races there, we'll have another pair of 30-minute sprint races to see out the season, well, season finale at the classic old-school Italian tempo of speed, that is the Monza Grand Prix circuit on the 5th of June. So plenty to come still, but first and foremost, in the present, we need to conclude what is our American triple header that began with round number 4 at Road America, but now it is here today at Road Atlanta. But before we talk specifically about the circuit in a bit more detail, let's give you a recap of the championship standings then after 5 rounds. We start off with the top 12 of the Drivers' Championship for the Premier class, and as we can see, Ricardo Luiz Pereira continues to lead. We're 5th and the 6th place last time out, with championship charge hasn't fallen off the rails quite yet, but the one thing that is certain that right now, they were hard-fought races at the Circuit of the Americas and had a very challenging day, particularly in race number 1 with battle with Mathew Croft, and in race number 2, for every place he gained, he found himself under pressure to lose it immediately from those around him. And indeed, right now for Luiz Pereira, he really is the man with a marker on his back, trying to hold on to that championship lead. And with a lead of 35 points, it's over Mathew Croft there, who picked up 4th and 5th last time out. And again, much like Luiz Pereira, found himself right in the thick of the battle. Couldn't quite pull off a podium that he wanted to, but still just stayed a slight step ahead of Luiz Pereira and has been able to close down the gap a little bit more. However, in third place, only a further 5 points behind on 296 points, is the Ferrari driver that everybody's been talking about down in the paddock since the Circuit of the Americas, Christopher Starsmore, with what's that double podium, including a second and a first, and also that absolutely staggering pole position lap. Well, right now, the Simcast Racing UK driver is closing down the Vulcan Motorsport Silver and Z-Axis Simsports drivers very rapidly, and with results go his way today, could he be your championship leader coming into what will be round number 7 in a week's time? Well, outside the top 3, let's not forget we've got other drivers here, including John Ludbrook, who was a bit anonymous at the Circuit of the Americas, it must be said, in terms of his results, but sometimes that's the way things go, and picking up his first 2 results outside of the top 10 since the season opener. And Peter Duke also the same, with non-finishes in both races in the round, so therefore falling to 5th place, the lowest he's been all season in what is the 219 point situation. And the DDK Racing Team P, what is their Honda NSX Evo driver, right now looking to try and get things back on form, because at the start of the season, of course, he was looking to be one of the major contenders. James Bostock picking up his first podium in the second race of the day at last round. He's moving to 6th place for Carme GP2 Porsche, and he's 2 points ahead of Jan Osterberg for Nifels at Class Tech Racing, who had a very happy first sprint race at the Circuit of the Americas, but a second race to forget there, and really that has been the story of his season for the last couple of rounds. Things have not gone his way. Your top 10's completed by the trio of Nick Stubb, Jim Fox and Menno Blum, and as you can note there, what is only the best part of 19 points between the trio, and right now absolutely locking horns between all 3 of them. And well, could we see even more sparks between them today? My gut feeling says yes, we may do so indeed, with Scott Kostrich meanwhile down in 11th place on 127 points for Carme GP2 Porsche, ahead of the sister team Suma GP2 Porsche of Robin Aston by only 5 points, and both drivers there eager to battle for best of the rest, but also to break the way into the top 10. Outside what is the Premier class, well, of course we've got the Evo class, and the update here on the Evo class standings is that Grant Miller has now taken the lead for the first time this season. The lead has finally slipped out the hands of Wesley Van Rens, and from the Ferrari driver to the Ford driver, well, right now Phoenix Racing's driver is looking to be on fine form as he continues to charge his way forward. His consistency is continuing to reward him, and no doubt about that. Well, was a 4th place finish in race number 1 and a 2nd place finish in race number 2, and will right now add into his podium tally, and with a 6-point advantage, well, now the initiative is going to be on Wesley Van Rens to try and counter-attack, given the fact he almost stumbled out of the top 10 both races, but managed to hold on. but a difficult day at the Circuit of the Americas, no doubt about it, for the Racing League Hub driver. In third, Andrea Muntin, who has been readdressed to the Evo class there, and we do apologise for the confusion. The fact in the point standings he was shown as Evo last time out, but in what was the race standings on the broadcast overlay, we showed him as Premier class. We've got it all confirmed. All the confusion has been sorted out, and he definitely is an Evo driver for ZX's Sim Sports. And therefore, what it does mean is that the victory in race number 1 at the Circuit of the Americas that was attributed to Rob Gregg, in fact, went the way to Andre Muntin. We didn't celebrate it at the time, but we'll celebrate it now in the fact he managed to secure his first victory of the season in that brilliant battle with Rob Gregg in order to take it in the end. And, well, the leading Acura driver of the pair there, absolutely looking unstoppable, albeit a bit of an instant in what was the second race of the day, preventing him from making it a double podium, but still fighting on to a 4th place, and that's why he's moved into 3rd. Road Turf Courier sits in 4th on 235 points, and a reasonable set of results over the last few rounds, but wasn't on the grid last time out, so therefore for the Dutchman, for MJK Sim Racing B, it's all about getting back on the chase as quickly as possible. As we see in 5th, Owen Seward there for DXT Motorsports was a non-finish in the second race of the day, and a 5th place finish in the first race at the Circuit of the Americas. Makes fortunes and therefore not moving forward, but not moving backwards either. But he's got to be aware of the fact he's only 1 point ahead now. Moonshiners Racing Club's Rob Gregg and the Acura driver there very eagerly chasing down that top 5. Adel Chowdhury sits in 7th, falling down the order. Unfortunately not expected to be on the grid again today due to what is a health issue, albeit we do wish him all the best on his recovery. Nothing to be too alarmed about, ladies and gentlemen, in the fact he was involved in a bit of an incident and therefore he is on the recovery path right now, is the Verano Academy driver, and we do wish him well indeed. He's massively missed on the grid, but from one missed driver to one, he'll be looking to seize an opportunity not to be missed. DXT Motorsports' Sean Clark now sits in 8th place ahead of Eduardo Endino by the best part of 2 points. And then we do have Daniel Paul completing the top 10 there for Flatline Racing as he's moved ahead of Mark Parkhurst, who hasn't been on the grid for the last couple of rounds. And we look forward to the day the ZX's Sim Sports driver gets back into the fray and gets back into the fight. Steve Rubino completes what is your top 12. And as you can see there, 3rd place finish last time out in the second race of the day in the US state of Texas. Absolutely benefiting him well and moving him now within arm's reach of the top 10. But then coming from the top 12 of the Evo class standings, we come to the Teams Championship, and as we can see here, this is the Teams Championship, of course, across both splits, both Split A and Split B, and, well, we can see right at the top still is none other than the team of RDSA Esports. However, since last round, their lead has been massively cut. It was previously in the region of 100 points. It's practically been slashed in half, if not to a third, down to 43 points, and they have got Z-Axis Simsports, who are closing the gap after their great performance at the Circuit of the Americas. Then we have Vulcan Motorsports Gold. They're under pressure from Racing League Hub in the battle for 3rd place. Only what is 22 points between the two teams, but then it's only 6 points to Carmo GP2 Porsche conversely from the RLH team. And right now that top 5 is absolutely intensifying as RDSA have been brought back into the fold. ZX's Simsports are the ones leading the charge after them, and then it's all on for 3rd place at the moment. In 6th, we do have Phoenix Racing there, and the combination of Hayden Phoenix Miller and Grant Miller continue to move forward, now on 559 points. The results keep on coming for them, and they've moved up from 7th to 6th. Meanwhile, behind them, we do have what is Vulcan Motorsport Silver, who have broken their way into the top 10 for the first time this season, with a brilliant set of results over the previous round, particularly being led the way by Ricardo Luiz Pereira, but also his colleagues Bjorn Classens and also Anthony Quaranta, both delivering great results. And then we can see at Moonshiners Racing Club, the Fraser, Liam Fraser, Dean Sheesby, Rob Gregg and James Fraser combination there on 474 points. They're also moving forward and breaking into the top 10 for the first time this season, ahead of Suma GP2 Porsche's combination drivers down 461 points, who've dropped from what was the battle for the top 5 to a certain battle now for the lower half of the top 10, albeit they have moved from 10th to 9th, it must be said. And then we do have DDK Racing Team in what is 10th place there, their E division, and they're just holding on to 10th by a single point on 459 points, because 1 point behind them is Y-Axis Simsports, who have just fallen out of the top 10 by a single point. And interestingly enough, we've lost 2 of our Cartesian axes. We've lost both the Y-axis and also the X-axis, who have both fallen just outside the top 10, and they were looking to get their way back in today after being mainstays for the last couple of rounds. So that's an update on the top 10 of the Teams Championship across both of our lobbies. But coming onto our circuit for today then, because we recapped the story so far, but we haven't brought you into the present. And bringing you back to the present, we are here at the Road Atlanta Full Course, of course, a circuit located in the US state of Georgia, near the town of Brazelton in Hall County. It's a circuit spanning 2.54 miles or 4.08 kilometers. 12 corners at its core, and all through elevation changes absolutely ram-packed in, and a two-dimensional circuit map doesn't quite demonstrate it, but thank you anyway to iRacing.com for their brilliant simulator and the track maps that come with it. But we'll talk more about the circuit when we go into qualifying, and it's only appropriate to do, ladies and gentlemen, because as we head back to circuit side, well, we are now only moments away from going into that qualifying session. In fact, I do believe we're not far away, only 30 seconds away here, and the circuit's falling relatively silent already as we do look to Mathew Croft to make it his way around in the 1:13, and as he does so in the Premier class, where he's currently 5th in the class classification. Robin Milton has set the fastest time down to 1:18.339. That's overall in the Premier class, and in the Evo class, meanwhile, it does seem to be that Wesley Van Rent is immediately back onto form by setting the fastest time at 1:18.976, and that puts him 9th overall. But practice is just one part of the story. It's one page in this chapter of the championship, and of course we've got many chapters to go because the checker flag comes out in this practice session as we look to the pit lane and Van Ren's parked up there, and it's time, ladies and gents, without further ado, to head into qualifying. 10 minutes, or in fact 15 minutes. Who's going to put it on pole? Let's find out. So as we make our way into qualifying then, all of our drivers will be immediately go as quickly as they can. Of course, it will be a lone qualifying session, which does mean all of our drivers will have an isolated instance of the circuit to themselves to set the best possible time. As we see Peter Duke parked up at the end of the pit lane there, making sure everything's good to go in the DDK Racing Team Acura before he gradually pulls his way away. And well, as he does so here, he's going to have to get himself dialed in very quickly. Now, what can we expect in this qualifying session? Well, what we can expect around here is that to get the ultimate pole lap, you've got to be on the limit. We said that earlier on in the pre-show, in the fact that this is one of those circuits where you need to use every inch and millimetre of the tarmac to get the ultimate lap time, but you've got to be brave as a driver. The thing about Road Atlanta is, as we do see Peter Duke making his way through the S's, is that it's a circuit made up of a number of rapid-fire direction changes, elevation changes thrown on in, and you also do have that sensational back straight, which oddly enough has been shortened over the lifespan of the circuit. Originally, we did not have the turn 10A, 10B chicane, which now exists at the end of the long back straight, which Peter Duke is about to make his way onto, and previously it was a run all the way up the crest to where turn 11 is, and then downhill in towards turn number 12, as it's named nowadays, but previously it was just one long run, and the track speeds were so high in the end, that's why the chicane was added for safety. But make no mistake, it's going to be a challenging one here, and you're going to have to go beyond those safety boundaries if you want to put yourself on pole position in class or overall, and as all our drivers now make the way through, we've got a couple of drivers to introduce to what is the grid for today, 2 new drivers in particular, and we're just going to try and find them out on circuit at the moment, albeit it does seem as though they've been a little bit camera shy at the moment, as we do look to, where's Mathew Croft for a brief moment there as he makes his way on around, but we will introduce our newcomers very shortly, and they are going to be Robin Milton and Matthew Hunter, who are expected to be making their way out into this qualifying session. But as Mark Wesley makes his way onto his first flying lap in this qualifying, well, we've got 4 flying laps for all of our drivers here, including what is an out lap as well, so technically 5 laps, but 4 of them will count, and well, every one of those laps is going to be absolutely critical to success, no doubt about it, for the simple reason you're going to want to get your head down and absolutely deliver lap to lap, corner to corner, in order to be able to put yourself right at the front of the field and potentially on that pole position. But as our drivers get their first flying laps underway, we do say hello there to Stephen Wilkinson, who is going to be cheering on the Simcast team at UK, and they've got 3 cars on the grid now, with Christopher Starsmore being their big star of last time out, but they do have what is their newcomer to the team on the grid today, and that'll be Matthew Hunter, who we'll see in due course will be racing in what will be the Evo class, will be Hunter, and meanwhile we will be seeing also newcomer, albeit a privateer, Robin Milton in the Premier class, and right now we can't quite find Hunter on the circuit. There he is, in fact, we finally find him. One of them's not camera shy anymore, and we do welcome Matthew Hunter to the grid as he makes his way down there in the Ferrari 296 GT3, and well, it's a bit of an emotional day for Matthew Hunter because it's his first round of racing on the grid, but also on top of that, in the fact that it's an emotional one because unfortunately he recently heard about the passing of his stepfather, and well, we do wish him all the best in coming to terms with that. Indeed, it's a difficult time when a family member does pass away, and know that the feelings are all here from the Evolution Sim Racing community behind Matthew every step of the way, and you will see a small dedication on the car in relation to the passing of his stepfather, and well, we wish Matthew Hunter all the best day as he makes his debut, even under challenging and quite emotional circumstances, as he gets his first flying lap underway there in the Evo class and gets his campaign underway. But as he does so, we look to the other newcomer on the grid, and he's in a very fancy liveried Acura NSX Evo 22. It's Robin Milton, the privateer, and well, he'll be racing the Premier class in the Arta machine there as he makes his way on down the back straight, trying to get as much tyre weaving and tyre warming as possible in, and as he heads on down in the 155, keep your eyes out for him in the fact that he is looking to be quite a quick driver. He was the fastest in the final practice warm-up session in the Premier and overall category, so therefore on paper at least we're expecting to be right at the front fighting for the big score from from the outset. But of course, will it be the same when they are put under the pressure? Some drivers do very well when they're under no pressure. Others, meanwhile, collapse when they're under pressure. And is he one or the other? We'll see as he makes his way around then to go onto his first flying lap. And we'll jump on board for a second flying lap of one of our drivers, because that's when the tires will be up to temperature, and then we get to see the ultimate laps coming in. But as Peter Duke makes his way over the crest and down in towards what we turn number 12. What's it going to be this time for Duke as he makes his way through the final corner? He's currently sat in third place provisionally, and only what is 6.5 hundredths off the pole position, and he goes to provisional pole there on a 18.682. It's an improving lap, and it puts him the best part of what is 2.5 hundredths faster than Nick Stubb, but right now it's incredibly close. And will this circuit, being one of those circuits which is all about cornering capability, it's deceptive. You would think this circuit's a medium to low downforce setup, so really a high downforce setup will benefit you most, albeit if you do sacrifice a little bit of rear wing, you will be very strong on that back stretch. But it's all about carrying as much speed from corner to quarter here, and definitely that's why it gives it a roller coaster ride feel. But as Duke makes his way around and Mathew Croft responds to an 18.602, going almost a tenth faster by comparison. Well, meanwhile, in the Evo class, Steve Rubino, the fastest driver out there at the moment. Indeed, one of those drivers who really has been lightning quick in qualifying sessions over the course of this season so far, but through technical issues and not putting enough fuel in the car or something else entirely, we have seen the Hobo iRacing Ford Mustang relegated to the pit lane as quickly as it started races, which has been unfortunate. But they seem to have got the issues away and at bay, in the strategy on call as a Circuit America's last round, and therefore right now starting to get their heads down and charge, and Rubino rides at the head of that effort as he roars his way along. But as he does so, heading on through in towards what will be the 10A and 10B chicane, heading towards that braking zone. Well, this Mustang will be an absolute monster on the straight and might be a little bit heavy on the brakes, but to be fair, he's shifting that bulk around as he heads out of turn number 10 and in towards 11 and down into 12. And as Rubino heads to line for what will be going on to his final flying lap, or what's he going to be able to achieve this time as he crosses the line? He's currently down to third because Anagi improving, and Rubino jumps back up to provisional pole in the Evo class. A lovely lap there, and that was a 119.196. But as he makes one through, Robin Milton now has gone the fastest of everybody in Premier and overall, and that's on a 118.521 by the best part of a tenth there over Mathew Croft. So the times continue to fall, and Milton's the one showing there's a lot more pace out there if you can find it. But speaking of drivers that are trying to find a bit of pace, well, Jim Fox making his way around, and we're going to jump on with the Suma GP2 Porsche driver for a flying lap of Road Atlanta. So making his way out of the final corner then, and onto that start-finish straight. Heading to turn one, blind apex here. It's a long uphill right-hander. You dab the brakes about 100 meters per corner, apex down to fourth gear, and absolutely buries the throttle with the camber of the road as he heads over the rise. Now, blind through two, braking nice and early for turn number 3. There is Sunny, turn number 3, completely blind apex now through 4, and as he makes his way down into the S's here, it'll be right, left as he comes on through. It's all about balancing the throttle here. A little bit of understeer creeps in, then puts the brakes on for turn number 5 as he comes through a left-hander, takes a lot of apex curve, sends the car sideways there, practically drifts his way out the corner. Not an ideal line, but he's going to carry on. And as Fox makes his way in towards turn number 6, looks to his left-hand side for the 100-yard board. Onto the brakes he goes, down to third gear, mounting the curb a little bit there to turn the car, and now into turn number 7, the corner that makes or breaks the run to the back stretch. In the fact, you've got to be absolutely perfect on getting back to the throttle. Fox does so as he now makes his way on through the kinks of 8 and 9 in the long run down towards turn number 10, and he can relax for a little bit in 9. He's got the best part of 15 to 20 seconds here at full throttle as he comes on through, and we get to hear that lovely 9,000 plus RPM scream of that flat 6 in the Porsche as he makes his way down to the braking zone here. The car will bottom out as he goes onto the brakes, into 10A, through the left, into the right. He'll cut as much curve as he possibly can as he comes on through there, runs a little bit wide, but gets it to get on the exit curve over the crest of 11, and now down into turn number 12, flat out as he goes through here, and as he does so, just missing the apex curve as he roars his way through. And for Jim Fox, what's it going to be this time? It's still 17th, unfortunately. It was a smooth lap, albeit that mistake cost him dear at what was the run out of the S's into turn number 5, and therefore Fox in the end relegated to what will be a 17th place starting Premier, or what that translates to is an overall 22nd, as we do look to those overall qualifying positions there. There are 36 drivers on this grid who've got times in so far, albeit with the fact the laps come so thick and fast here, a number of drivers have opted not to set laps as yet. They're waiting to see how the circuit evolves and how the wind conditions are evolving and what is the weather in general evolve. There's a little bit of wind behind you on this back straight can help you out massively, but right now as we can see, Wesley Van Rens, who's the centre of our cameraman's attention, is absolutely on a charge out here right now in what is the Evo class, and we're 12th overall, and Steve Rubino meanwhile in 16th is your second place. What is Evo driver, and it is looking as though at this time Van Rens has got himself back on form after what's been a difficult last couple of rounds. Robin Milton in the pit lane, he thinks he's done enough to stay overall and Premier pole with a 118.384, 2/10 faster than Mathew Croft. Well, my gut feeling says yes, he may have done so. Van Rens there cross the line for his final lap, does not improve that time around. Christopher Starsmore, meanwhile, on his final lap here in the Ferrari 296, and as he heads on down here, well, the 110 machine right now, in fact, that's not on the back straight, that's coming in towards turn number 6. I was about to say he was going a long way down, and now in towards turn number 7. He will very shortly be making his way on the second half of this roller coaster ride lap, and as he comes out of the corner, what's it going to be now for Starsmore then, because it has so far been a 5th place in this qualifying session provisionally, but can he find a bit more time out there before all is said and done? We'll have to wait and see, as he's got that long run down here where he's got to keep himself composed for as long as he can. Some more improvements coming through. We do have what is it, Ricardo Luiz Pereira, who sets his first flying lap of the session. Well, 118.770, that puts him 8th, but more times are going to come surely for him. We've also yet to get any times come through for James Fraser, Dean Sheesby or Rob Gregg. As therefore multiple drivers yet to commit to a lap, and we do still have plenty of time left in this qualifying session. And Stars will cross the line for his final qualifying lap, and it's no improvement. He'll stay in 5th place provisional and what is overall alongside the Premier class there. And Stars will right now be on his cool-down lap, but those are out there on laps at the moment. Sean Clark, as he makes his way out to the final corner. What's it going to be for Clark this time? Currently down in 35th place. He does improve to 1 minute 20.205, but the best he's going to be able to do is that 35th overall, or what is 14th place in the Evo class. Not quite working out there for Sean Clark, but then again can pick up places in the race because there is a high risk of mistakes on the opening laps and indeed incidents between drivers at Road Atlanta, and it does mean there's always an opportunity for starting further down the field. Stuart Rice, meanwhile, making his way on down the back stretch here, and as he does so, he's got a way to go, but Ricardo Luiz Pereira coming to the end of his second flying lap, as we do look towards the Premier Championship leader, and as he comes on around and down here, we separate the times out for the classes once again. Well, right now, Luiz Pereira coming out of the final quarter. Where's this going to put him? And well, he's currently 8th. He's jumped up to 2nd now in the Premier class and overall 118.476, and well, given the fact he managed to shave the best part of 2/10 out of his previous lap, well, if we carry on that trend, you would imagine he's going to be going for pole position this next time around. But of course, it's one thing to say it, another thing to do it, and he's got to continue to up the ante every time he delivers a lap here as he makes man down through the corners, and will right now absolutely glued to the tarmac, no question about it. That car is looking absolutely smooth as butter there, and as he makes his way on towards turn number 6, I can tell you one thing, there's no butterfingers in the cockpit of that Acura, because right now he is absolutely dialed in as much as possible, and that is why he is your Premier Championship leader coming into this round, and why he has been the force to be reckoned with over what has been the opening 5 rounds. But as he has a slow run there coming out of turn at number 7 initially, I think this might be a build up to one more lap, and he is the only driver out there right now on what will be a qualifying lap. Everyone else has already delivered all of their 4 flying laps, alternatively is in the pit lane and not going out, and will those in particular James Fraser, Dean Sheesby and Rob Gregg, who've not gone out there to do laps. In fact, James Fraser has done laps, let me apologise there, and has not set a valid time. So right now the Moonshiners Racing Club driver, he'll be starting from the very back of the field, given the fact he's not delivered any valid laps in the number 2. But Sheesby and Rob Gregg, well, Dean Sheesby's delivered 3 laps, none of them valid, and Rob Gregg has not delivered any laps. But here we go then, ladies and gentlemen, one last roll of the dice for always Ricardo Luiz Pereira, and let's jump on board and see what exactly he can do here as he attacks Road Atlanta at full tilt. As he makes his way through turn number 1, a nice line on the exit there, brings it over to the right to open up the left-hand side of what is the circuit for turns 2 and 3, onto the brakes and down, mounting these curves, setting up this Acura to be very responsive to riding on the curves. He comes into the exit here, this will be commitment as he goes up into 4th gear, flat out all the way through as he now goes onto the brakes to turn number 5, missing what is the apex curve there, intentionally to let the car roll out wide and grip up on the exit curve. And now as he makes his way down to turn number 6, well, for Luiz Pereira, it's all going to be about at this point now, trail braking as late as he can in towards turn number 6, in towards 7 he goes, braking on that curve there to extend the braking zone, open up the corner, back on the throttle, absolutely a pinpoint precision being demonstrated here by the Portuguese driver as he makes his way on down the back stretch. This is giving me vibes of what was that brilliant set of laps he delivered in qualifying at the Algarve circuit, his home circuit, but right now he's very far away from home. He's not improved in sectors 1 and 2, but he's practically matched his previous best. He has gone purple in sector 3, however, so this is looking to be a lap to contest Milton's provisional pole position. Through 10A he goes, then into the right-hander at 10B, goes a little bit wide on the turn at 10B. That's going to cost him about half a tenth as he makes his way now over the crest and down in towards the final quarter. Can Luiz Pereira still away pole position here, or is Robin Milton going to get it on his debut? And for Luiz Pereira, it's not enough. It goes the way of Robin Milton at the end under day, but what a showdown in qualifying, and Luiz Pereira giving it everything, but it wasn't enough as the car parks up there on the start-finish straight. He'll look at the timing chart and see he hasn't done it and be thinking, what do I have to do in order to beat that fella Acura? Well, we don't know, because right now, Robin Milton, on his debut, has absolutely stolen away the show and essentially said, all right, I'm here to race just as much as you all, and I've got some rounds to make up. But as our drivers do come to a stop, we've only got a minute to go then before we do head to the grid for our one and only race today, and it will be our 60-minute feature race here at Road Atlanta. But to give you a quick rundown of what is the overall top 10, it's Robin Milton who will line up on pole position on his debut, the privateer for Arta Racing in the Acura, and there is Robin Milton parked up, and he'll be absolutely ecstatic about that, ahead of Ricardo Luiz Pereira, the Premier Championship leader coming into tonight. Mathew Croft and Peter Duke will line up on row at number 2. There'll be Nick Stubb and Christopher Starsmore on row 3 ahead of Vincent Luder and James Howarth in the Ford Mustang there on its home soil. We'll then have Jan Østberg and Rob McKee completing your top 10 in what is the Evo class. It's pole position 13th overall for Wesley Van Rens as he returns to pole position form. And then you've got a sizable couple of places to what is Charlie Stoffard in 15th place, the McLaren driver who took his first win of the season, the Evo class, in race number 2 of the day at the Circuit of the Americas, and said about how much that McLaren switches on at the start of the races for him. And then you do have in 3rd place in the Evo class, Steve Rubino starts 18th, just ahead of Grant Miller, the championship leader, the two Fords together there. So it is going to be a race whereby it's going to not just be about singular laps, but the whole distance. Is a very different style of race day compared to last week, because we are expecting pit stops for fuel and everything in between. But the key point being here that it's all going to be about consistency. But without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, let's head to the grid and take a walk through the entire field as they get ready to go racing for round number 6 of the championship. As the grid begins to get set, this is how our drivers will line up for our one and only race today at Road Atlanta. Robin Milton, on his debut, takes pole position overall in the Premier class with what was an absolutely brilliant 118.384. He'll be joined on the front row of the grid, separated by a 10th by Ricardo Luiz Pereira for Vulcan Motorsport Silver. And then on row number 2, it's going to be the parent of Z-Axis Simsports, Mathew Croft, the second place man in the Premier class championship, and he's going to be joined alongside by Peter Duke, the man who's in 5th and looking to get a championship campaign back on the rails, which it fell off for DDK Racing Team. And then we'll have the company of what is Nick Stubb, who lines up 5th for Vulcan Fastest by Glass Tech, and alongside the Dutchman, the Briton of Christopher Starsmore for Simcast Racing UK, the man who really did the Texas two-step last time out. From them, starting on the full row of the grid in 7th, it's Vincent Luder for Sim Racing Team at Lowlands, and he'll be in the company of what is James Howarth for DXT Motorsports. From the Ford Mustang driver, it's then to the Porsche from the super smooth Swede of Jan Østberg for Nifels at Glass Tech Racing, and Rob McKee completes your top 10 for DXT Motorsports in the McLaren. Adam Baker starts his day in 11th, best of the rest there, and the LS Racing B driver will be in the company of Scott Kostrich for Carme GP2 Porsche. From the Scotsman to another Dutchman, it'll be your pole sitter in the Evo class, and that's Wesley Van Rens. Well done to him for Racing League Hub, and definitely if you're a Van Rens fan, you'll be happy to see he's back on the form, which he's been missing for the last couple of rounds. Ross Norsworthy joins him on the 7th row of the grid for Simcast Racing UK, and it'll be Charlie Stoffard, the Team KXR driver, who everybody will be keeping their eyes out for the one reason that McLaren loves to go battling. Charlie loves to go battling in the opening 10 to 15 minutes of the race, and how much battling will he do this time, because he's going to be ahead of Christian Malaskov there, the Romanian driver for Verano Academy. Stuart Rice lines up 17th for Blue Sky Esports, ahead of Steve Rubino, who's 18th for Hobo Racing. And then we have just behind him the second of 2 Ford Mustangs in the Evo class. It's Grant Miller, the championship leader for Phoenix Racing. Your top 20 is completed by Jan Nagy for Nifels at Glass Tech Racing, where personal best qualifying performance, they're 5th in the Evo class, 20th overall. We'll then come behind them to what will be our next set of rows, and it will be on row at number 11, the combination of Menno Blom in the Ferrari and fellow Premier driver Denny Plöger, and from the MJK Sim Racing driver, it'll be then Suma GP2's Jim Fox, who'll be in the company of Robert Nobles for Sim Racing Nation, with Danny Veer for DXT Motorsports line up 25th ahead of Road Turf Cure for MJK Sim Racing. On row number 14, it's the combination of James Pallett and what for Racing League Hub, and Matthew Hunter on his debut for what is Simcast Racing UK, and we look forward to seeing how Hunter gets on today. And then we will have Mark Wesley for LS Racing B just behind on what is 29th ahead of 30th place man Craig Tillerson for Rano Academy. That's your top 30. On row number 16 just behind him, starting 31st, it's Eduardo Endino for LS Racing B, ahead of Andre Montine for ZX's Simsports, and well, Montine having a difficult qualifying session, not right up the field, but of course from circuit to circuit and week to week, the variety definitely perhaps catching out some drivers, and Montine being one of them. Gareth Newton lines up 33rd for Carme GP2 Porsche, and he'll be in the company of Daniel Paul for Flatline Racing. And then we do have Sean Clark for DXT Motorsports, ahead of Alex Boniface for DXT Motorsports, his teammate. They line up together on what is the 18th row of the grid. Row number 19 will be made up by Martin Cook And from the MJK Sim Racing driver, he'll be in the close company of Dean Sheesby, who was the first to drivers not to get a valid lap in qualifying for Moonshiners Racing Club. And it will be the Moonshiners Racing Club trio altogether, because Rob Gregg will line up 39th on the grid and James Fraser behind him 40th, and starting last but not least in our running field. And well, it is a long field of cars, 40 cars, and we've got 60 minutes of racing to unfold here at Road Atlanta today, ladies and gentlemen. And the field is already halfway around this formation app, which is lovely to see. And well, it's lovely for multiple reasons. One, because we get to see the field making its way around in earnest in the lovely blimp camera, but also secondly, because if you've got an itch to scratch about fast and furious adrenaline pumping racing action like we have here in the commentary booth, well, we're not far away from seeing it all unfold here today. But of course, Robin Milton, who starts on that pole position as we look back from what is the rear of the car. He's got this long line of cars all behind him, and they will all be very eager to make an early and quick impression on him. But the privateer, in turn, will be very keen to make sure he's the one making the big impressions. And as he looks out of his cockpit window, the only thing he's going to be thinking about is that he wants a clear road in front of him, minus that pace car over the race distance. But will it all come his way or not? We'll have to see. For Wesley Van Rens, meanwhile, the Evo pole sitter, he's got a whole pack of premiers in front of him, and he won't want any of the Evo drivers to get close. He's got Norsworthy between himself and Stoffard, but it's a small buffer, and therefore Charlie Stoffard will be immediately on the attack, and Van Rens will need to be ready for it. But as we look back to the exterior cameras, to Robin Milton, we're now going to see him take us to the green as they make their way for the final couple of corners from round number 6 of the championship here in the US state of Georgia. And it's go, go, go as Robin Milton goes on green, and they roar their way away for 60 minutes of racing here today. Milton gets a good start. There's been a big instant further on back. Multiple cars collecting that. Menno Blum being one of them. Couldn't quite see who else, but most of the field does make it into the first corner. And as they do, well, the batting kicks off. As we can see there, Rob McKee battling Jan Usberg. But Usberg getting ahead as James Howarth under pressure here from what is the Swede as he looks up the inside in towards turn number 3. And there's a nice place made there by Usberg immediately on the attack. Further back, well, Wesley Van Rens has had a slow start because Steve Rubino's jumped his way in towards the lead of the Evo class here, no hesitation. He's pulled the trigger on that one, and he's right on the back of Christian Maliskov, who's also found his way through in the Vrano Academy machine. Well done to the pair of them for a brilliant race start between them, and I do wonder whether that instant further back, well, Charlie Stoffard was caught up in it. I think he was in contact with Menno Blum, or at least he was in contact with somebody, because the car's in the pit lane. We'll get you an update on that when we can, ladies and gentlemen. But meanwhile, staying here on what we can see, well, Danny Vera as well, trying to get on the back of Robert Nobles there as they come through the Crayola DXT Motorsports car, looking up the inside there into turn number 7, but can't quite probe or poke his way on in, and has to instead wait his turn as they make their way onto the back stretch. But as they come on down, well, from them looking up to Adam Baker. And Baker side by side here with Scott Kostridge as they come on down. And in fact, that's not Norsworthy, we should say. That's not Kostridge. Kostridge's up the road. So Norsworthy trying to look up the outside there versus Baker, who goes defensive in towards the turn 10 chicane. He's going to hold on to that very well. But of course, what it will do is bunch the field up and cause them to lose the pack in front. But as they head over the crest and down towards the end of lap number 1, well, after one lap of racing, it's Robin Milton who leads ahead of Ricardo Luiz Pereira in 2nd. And Mathew Croft sits 3rd. Peter Duke is in 4th. And Nick Stubb in 5th. Then Christopher Starsmore in 6th. No change really inside the top 7 because Vincent Loader completes it. And then Jan Usberg is the first driver to have gained a place up to 8th place, ahead of James Howarth, who dropped one, and Rob McKee completes your top 10. In what is the Evo class, Steve Rubino is in 15th, your leader ahead of Wesley Van Rens. You can see they're all in the camera shot, and behind him is Jan Nagy, where Nagy having a brilliant start there for the Glass Tech and Knifels racing team, and as he makes his way on through, absolutely looking as smooth as sugar right now as he makes way on through. And as he comes in towards what we turn number 5, well, he has got Stuart Rice behind him, but he'll be happy at the fact it's a Premier driver, not an Evo driver. He's just got to be cognizant of the fact Grant Miller's not too far behind, and the Mustang will be feeling a little bit hungry. But as they come in towards turn number 6, go look up the inside from Rice, but can't quite find the move. Has to back out there, but knowing his intentions are clear. Well, right now, what can Nagy do in order not to lose time, but also make sure he doesn't end up battling too hard if he doesn't want to do that battling? Further back, Daniel Paul also trying to make a move on Sean Clark here. Given there's been a bit of a shake-up in the Evo class as a whole, and as they come out of what is turn number 7, we jump on board here, where Daniel Paul has a slow exit by comparison as they power their way along. But you can see up there, Andre Montine only what is 7/10 up the road from the pair of them. So right now, Clark and Paul trying to pull each other along in order to chase down what is your 8th place driver in the Evo class, and they've got Martin Cook only a second behind them, and then Menno Blum, Alex Boniface and Rob Gregg all in this long line of cars. They make their way down to the braking zone here for turn number 10 once again, but it's going to be a hop and a skip over the curbs, and no change between these drivers at the moment. But definitely right now, be automatically thinking about, can they gain the places, or can they save a little bit of fuel into these braking zones, because this is a circuit where fuel is absolutely drank by the gallon, as it's a lovely run out of turn number 12 there for Daniel Paul. He's going to look close here, but then backs off into the braking zone for turn number 1, and Daniel Paul right now not looking to make a move unless he absolutely has to. I think he's going for the strategy approach very early on. But as they head over the rise and onto another turn of the circuit, well, from them, we look to James Hatworth here as he starts to go after what will be Jan Osberg, but the problem is he's got Rob McKee getting closer, and this Ford Mustang right now, well, it will struggle in the first half of the lap, given the fact it's not a happy car when it comes to quick-fire direction changes, but the second half of the lap, it's an old-school style of what is a long acceleration zone, followed by a heavy braking zone, and do plenty more acceleration, and that's where this Mustang will go. Well, you can see that. Look at the exit he's got out of turn number 7, and that car is absolutely flying down the back straight right now. I get the feeling he set this car up for more what is the straight line speed in the second half of the lap, and just so it's bearable through the corners, and well, it's not an unfair setup to go for. In fact, it's a very smart setup, because you can be an absolute blob coming through the corners and make it impossible for anybody to get on through, be an absolute roadblock there, to be a bit more politically correct, then what it means is down the straights you can just pull away from everyone, and that's where you'll make the moves. But as they make the way through turn number 12 and onto another lap, on to lap number 4 they go, and well, as they do, there's going to be no change at the moment, but Howard definitely putting the pressure on Osberg as they roar the way around. But heading up the rise, it's one thing to get close, it's another thing to try and look for the move, as we look back to Stuart Rice, and finds himself in a similar situation, in trying past Jan Nagy as they come out of turn 1 and in towards turns 2 and 3, but he's not going to be able to find it at the moment, and Grant Miller just watching and waiting in the wings there and thinking about it. Craig Tillotson as well, one of our single Corvette drivers on the screen, in fact the only Corvette C8R when it's Z06 machine, as he makes one through. There's a little bit of a corner cut there from Turfkir in order to stop the car from going wayward, but down to the S as they go. Well, Tillotson comes right onto the back of the Porsche driver, he's got a Porsche on the back of him as well, that's Gareth Newton, but right now the Premier driver just not able to move forward whatsoever, and there's a bit of a frustrating run of Wes corners there through the S's of Craig Tillotson, but he's playing the patience game there and not letting it get to him, and that's what you've got to do in these situations, and he'll eventually try and find his way through, but he's got to find it at a time where it's going to enable him to actually make the car too wide, and that's the hardest part in the first half of the lap. As further back we've got change of position, car going slowly there, that is, I believe, unless I'm very much mistaken, James Fraser's decided to lift off the throttle there, coming down in towards turn number 6 and letting what is marked by the Indian Sheesby go, and particularly letting his Moonshiners Racing Club teammate Sheesby go, who now will go on the attack, chasing after Wesley and Boniface. But from then, Sean Clark battling here with Daniel Paul. We said this was going to happen, only a couple of laps to go. Paul looking up the inside here, in towards turn number 10, can't quite find it, backs off again, but then again trying to show a little bit of sign of making a move, as meanwhile, moves being made here. That's got Kostrich trying to go defensive, instead of Baker, who looks up the inside. Baker goes a little bit deep with Kostrich, but both of them survive the corner as they make the way with the crest into turns 2 and 3. Well, right now coming on down here, as we look to the class positions on the left-hand side of the screen, well, Kostrich holds on there just about for 11th place at the moment, with Adam Baker and Ross Norsworthy on the attack as they make the way through, but coming through the left-hand turn at number 5 was a lovely run for the S's there for Kostrich compared to Baker, and Baker has reset to square one for a brief moment in terms of needing to go back on the hunt. But as they come through, well, some surprises elsewhere, including Matthew Hunter, the Simcast Racing UK driver, who's made his way all the way up into 5th place in the Evo class, having started in 8th place in what was a fair qualifying session in his debut. Well, right now he's making that progress and making it very quickly, and well behind him that's rolled at Turf Pure and what is also Craig Tillotson, but Hunter being closed up a little bit by these drivers behind. In fact, that last lap he was faster, but previous laps he has been a bit slower, so therefore a bit on the fence. But meanwhile, here's a moment where you won't want to be on the fence. You're going to need to make a firm decision if you're Jan Nagy or Stuart Rice. Rice on the inside there in the Acura on the right of your picture, meanwhile Nagy on the left of your picture in what is the white and black Porsche, and in the end lets Rice go and says, right, get out the way, I've got to try and keep Grant Miller behind, you've cost me the time and now I don't want you anywhere near me. And I think Rice is saying, okay sir, I'm on my way, because right now Grant Miller's all over the back of him as they make the way through. We ride on board here with the Scotsman in number 80 Mustang, and as they head in towards turn number 1, he takes a quick peek to the inside but decides no, not going to go for it, it's too far back, makes sense. But what he will do in turn now is just start to get into the mind of where's Jan Nugget and try and look for that 3rd place in the Evo class. And indeed we haven't even completed 10 minutes, we've already completed it's 5 laps of racing, such as the speed at which they deliver the laps, which are sub 1 minute 20 for the fastest drivers here at Road Atlanta. You can understand why that lap count is going to be very high come the end of the race. But right into left they go then through what is a turn at number 5, and both drivers run a little bit wide there, but you are allowed to do it as long as the car's set up for it. Otherwise, if it's not set up and it bounces off the curb, you can end up in the wall. You can see Miller using the weight of the Mustang to settle the car down much more naturally. It's one of the things the Mustang can do. It's a very bulky and heavy car, and you can use that curb weight in order to attack curves much more aggressively compared to what is the Porsche, which is much more sensitive to weight transfers and with sudden shocks in the suspension. And as they make the way on down the back stretch, well, right now Miller close, not close enough, but he'll be in the acceleration zone here, and we'll gradually see this V8 open up the taps. But Nagy not having a bad run out the corner, and also having a bit of straight line speed himself, so therefore they will stay as they are for now. But Miller close, but not close enough to think about a move, but definitely wants to try and get that move on sooner rather than later, I suspect. But from them then, as they make the way onwards, well, we look a bit further up up the field to the very front of the field, and this is Robin Milton versus Ricardo Luiz Pereira. Well, it was a great start for Milton. Absolutely nailed the start, albeit Ricardo Luiz Pereira has now come back at him, but they've opened up a gap of what is 3.5 seconds to the rest of the field as they head down into the S's complex. And in front of them, that's a little bit of traffic they're going to need to contend with. And I believe that is the McLaren, unless I am very much mistaken. I believe that's the McLaren of Eduardo Andino, although I could be wrong on that. We'll soon get confirmation. I think that's Andino backing off, in fact. Yes, it is. And therefore, Milton and Luiz Pereira will not be obstructed or caught up in any traffic there. Good awareness from the lap down driver. And as they come out of what is turn number 7, a bit of a sideways moment there for Milton coming out of the corner. Right now, that pressure is building. And Luiz Pereira definitely keeping him honest as we ride on board and look back for the race leader in the 155, and well, here comes Luiz Pereira. He's gaining little by little. He gets closer and closer. He's going to look to the inside, then in towards the chicane. Here they go, too wide under braking, and in the end, Milton decides, right, I don't want to play the game. He backs off there. I think sensibly so. Luiz Pereira will take the lead this race, but Robin Milton deciding, you know what, we're only less than 10 minutes into a 60-minute race. There's no point fighting right now. We might as well work together for the mutual benefit of fighting each other again later and locking that lead battle to just between the two of them. But from them towards the battle for fourth place, it's the battle of the Porsches, and Mathew Croft is leading it, but Nick Stubb continues to take a look to the inside into turn number 1, and Stubb trying to send a message there, which is, look, I'm coming through, as Croft goes a little bit deep. Stubb almost follows him there, and you can see he had to lift off the throttle slightly, but that caused the front end of the car to lift up as a result, and as they come in towards turns 2, 3 and 4, well, right now Stubb close, if he was any closer, as we ride on board the dashboard here of what is the 169 Porsche and Vulcan Fasters by Glyset Racing, I would imagine that he's going to be tapping the rear of those Axis Sim Sport machine, and that's the one thing he won't want to do. But as they come up towards what will be turn number 6, where he gets a lot closer here on exit out of 5, and well, I think Stubb in another world would have gone for it, but right now 9, there's no need to, because he's putting so much pressure on as they come in towards turn number 7. Stubb taking a much more gradual approach to that corner, but losing sight of his exit curve. That's going to cost him a tenth as they power the way on through. He would have been a lot closer if he hadn't run as wide there, but who am I to complain, or am we to complain indeed, because right now he's still in the tow. He's getting a good run here, and Croft is being made to look stationary as a result of the slipstream. Now, which way will Stubb go? Croft goes defensive to the inside as they make their way down to the braking zone, and as they come on down here, it's going to be Stubb on the left, Croft on the right, and Croft right now go inside to outside, and Stubb once again backs off immediately, says, I know what you're trying to do, I'm not going to play the game of battling all the way through the corners. And well, to be fair, he's probably looked at his rearview mirror and noticed that this man has suddenly crept up behind. Vincent Loader is absolutely anonymous in what's the first couple of laps of this race, just watching at a distance, but right now he's got a bit closer. Christopher Starsmore also getting close. James Howarth, meanwhile, well, he's got Jan Usberg still in front of him, albeit I think he's going to change that now as he looks up the inside into turn 1, but it's a deep apex corner, and the thing with that is when you go to the inside, you've got to be fully alongside before the apex. Otherwise, you'll never get the move done unless you're going to be very late on the brakes. But Porsche's got the better brakes, and it just holds on there to Usberg. But you can definitely tell Howarth is in the head of Usberg right now, and Usberg is trying to go faster and faster into each and every one of these braking zones, and deeper as well, in order to keep that Mustang at bay. But that's when you start to make the mistakes, when it all starts to get a bit too much on the mind. And as they make their way in towards turn number 6, well, that Mustang right now is looming large. But from them, we do look back down the order for a brief moment to Adam Baker, who right now is between Steve Rubino and Wesley Van Rens for what is the lead of the Evo class, albeit he's a Premier driver, so he can't really play into that fight. But right now goes to show him the fact that he finds himself caught between a rock and a hard place as they make their way up towards turn number 10 once again. But you can imagine that he'll just want to try and clear them sooner rather than later as we come back to the Stubb versus what is Loader battle, and Stubb having to go defensive. Loader goes around the outside. That's a very late snatch to the outside. Gets squeezed the apex there, albeit given breathing room, but Nick Stubb having to go incredibly defensive there. And right now, Vincent Loader absolutely on the attack as Christopher Starsmore looks to also get involved in this battle. The three of them literally running nose to tail as they head into the next lap, and as they come on through in towards turn number 1, there's nothing between them. Starsmore just watching here at a distance and thinking about when's the right time to strike, and well, I think he's going to get an opportunity sooner rather than later, given the way they're all putting pressure into each other. But from them, well, James Howarth, meanwhile, he's been passed by Rob McKee. That's happened off camera because he was previously ahead of the DXT Motorsports McLaren, but as they all make their way serpentining down to the S's, there's been a change of position, and well, we've got a few replays queued up here to understand some open lap instance, and then subsequently that as the DXT Motorsports McLaren falls off the apex curb there through the S's, and well, that's going to cost it a lot of speed. They all make the one around as we can see McKee there having to try and regain some momentum, but he'll lose out to Howarth. Will he lose out to Kostrich? Kostrich goes around the outside. Does he get it all the way done? No, he doesn't, as McKee goes defensive then to turn number 7. 2 by 2 they go. This isn't Noah's Ark. There's a bit of a door rub there between Kostrich and Norsworthy. Norsworthy makes it 3 wide there as Christian Malasco Maskov now tries to get involved. He backs out to the corner, knowing it's not a place to go free wide. He's going to send one of them round, and as they power the way along the back straight, it's absolute pandemonium in Premier Class as they come on down here, and there's nothing between them as they head in towards what will be turns 10A and 10B. Down they come, and Maskov's going to look up the inside, but thinks better of it though. I think that's wise as they go for. I think Kostrich was more inclined to try and make himself as wide as possible to the inside as a small tab. Kostrich is sent round, and in turn, Maskov powers on through, and so does Rubino. Well, in the end, it was a domino effect. I don't think Maskov wanted to push them round. I don't think Rubino did either. Then in that's what's happened. In the fact they've all queued onto the back of each other, and those two drivers have gone around unfortunately, and commiserations to them. They won't be too pleased about it. But from them, as we come back to what is the Evo class here, well, from what is the loss of a couple of Premier drivers, well, right now Jan Nagy is behind Grant Miller, and well, Miller has found his way on through, and therefore moving up into third place in the Evo class, and now trying to make a bit more progress. Goodness me, it's all kicking off with certainty in a very small period of time, and with all that, there's still more to come as Menno Blum here also looking to try and make a move on Andre Montine as they come over the crest and down, but he's missed the front bumper, is Blum, and I think we can get an explanation as to why he's missed the front bumper, because without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, here's a replay of the race start from Menno Blum's perspective. Now this was at the very start, he was towards what was the mid to back portion of the field as they all came on down the hill, and Menno Blum in the end make his way for the final corner, and as he did so, oh my goodness, and that I believe was Charlie Stoffard, who was already into the wall before the race had got underway. Now how on earth had that happened? Let's get a further replay to explain. We are going to go back to the green flag start. So this was Stoffard in the KXR machine, and as he made his way over the crest on down, what exactly happened here? Well, they all started the concertina together, that's to be expected. Gets the power on right at the apex of turn number 12, and in the end gets tapped in the back by Stuart Rice that sends him round. Menno Blum ends up coming into the scene, and that explains it why the two of them end up together. And we did see the front bumpers go flying off between the cars, so that explains the open lap incident which we did witness. And then we have had some further incidents after the fact, including what was a bit of an incident for some of our other drivers, where Charlie Stoffard ended up losing out. We had Eduardo and Dino involved in an incident on the open lap as well, and well, this, oh goodness me, that was under braking into turn number 7 when he was tapping the rear of another car. Couldn't quite see who he tapped, but in the end, all the cars coming into the scene of the incident and not knowing where to go. We also had a bit of difficulty for what was Mark Wesley on lap number 2, and this was coming out to turn number 12 onto a new lap, and as he did so, car going slow on the inside. Was that a factor here? We will see. I believe it may have been, and Mark Wesley in the end runs wide, takes the rallycross line, but catches it, very well held, and then brings it back on. That was Robert Nobles going slowly, so I think he'd been involved in some sort of altercation. So those were some big moments that we did see, but let's also take a look at some overtakes. This was made on lap number 10, Grant Miller going for third place in the Evo class ahead of Jan Nagy after what was that incident only moments before between all the drivers, and this was coming down to turn 12, and Jan Nagy backing off there behind Stuart Rice, and in the end Grant Miller just simply saying out the inside and saying, well, thank you, if you're going to leave the door that wide open, I'll take it off of you. And well, as a result, making it nice and smooth. But he was a counter attack there from Jan Nagy, but it went the way of Grant Miller in the end, and that's how they've stayed since then. But let's come back to your live racing, ladies and gentlemen, because we've been in replay land for some time, but we also want to be in the land of the live as they make the way on through. And as they do, we do look to your race leader Ricardo Luiz Pereira as he makes his way in towards what will be at turn number 6, and as he comes on through the corner, and we do look to the overall positions on the left hand side of the screen, so you can see how all 40 of our drivers line up together. And unfortunately we have had retirements for what is, I do believe, Jim Fox, Alex Boniface, Robert Nobles and Charlie Stoffard. Stoffard, of course, with that open lap incident really putting his race backwards before it even started. Well, still more to come between our drivers, and Luiz Pereira and Robin Milton separated by what is only half a second as they now head towards what is the end of the 17th minute of this race, and with it the end of lap number 13. But there's still more battling to come, even with the field now starting to spread out a little bit. And well, in terms of battling to come, we look to James Howarth, who's still chasing after Jan Usberg, and I think we were due to get a replay as to how Rob McKee got ahead of James Howarth, and now Howarth got back ahead of him subsequently. And well, that replay is going to be coming very shortly from what I'm hearing in my ear. But as we do look here at Usberg versus Howarth, where it's a good run out the corner for the Mustang driver, and now starting to build up a little bit of momentum here as they come on down in towards turn number 12. And as they roar the way through the right-hander, he's close, but is he close enough to think of a move here? We can see it's going to be Usberg who goes defensive initially, saying to Howarth, don't go for it. But Howarth says, I want to. But you can see there the confidence that Usberg does have under braking, the fact he can just extend that braking zone a little bit longer on that natural racing line. And that's the problem. Turn number 1, it's so inviting because of how wide the circuit is. But in reality, there's not actually much room for you to go for an overtake. unless you're fully alongside already well before the braking zone. But Howarth right now is not too worried about that because he comes on through the S's where he gets close, but a bit too close for comfort. In fact, has to back off there with what's the dirty area at the front of the car, causing it to understeer slightly off its natural line, and therefore Howarth losing out, but he'll be definitely trying to come back in due course. But with that, we're going to take a look back at how Howarth got passed by what was Rob McKee. Well, in fact, we're going to see things in reverse. This was Howarth getting back ahead of McKee, and it was McKee who made that mistake, of course, going through the S's, ends up hitting the apex curb there, coming on through it was the latter half of the S's before turn number 5, and having to release the positions. And then we did see what was Kostic trying to go around the outside there, and well, in the end it was absolute pandemonium between all of them, and subsequently we did have that instant which sent a number of drivers around. But from that, how did McKee get ahead of Howarth in the first place? This was back on lap number 9, and this is Howarth looking for the move on the inside to outside through turns 10A and 10B, and in the end that's what happens when you do play the game of inside to outside, in the fact that McKee just simply goes, okay, you're all off racing line, I'll just creep on through. So brilliant bit of opportunism there for the McLaren driver, which was subsequently undone by his missed opportunity to nail the S's when he needed to most, and indeed shown there as well, trying to make his way past what was Usberg only moments afterwards and having it to no avail. But as we come back to live racing and indeed back to the present, Luiz Pereira, we look to the front of the field, and here he is, your race leader for what is Premier and overall. And now Robin Milton even closer. You get back down to what is 2.5 tenths there as they come through at what is turn number 7. And the two Acura drivers right now both pushed each other to the absolute limit as they roar their way down the back straight. Well, Milton, he didn't need to be any closer than this if he wants to get the ultimate run. Let's just listen in. Now, I might be wrong, ladies and gentlemen, but I think I did hear a brief lift of the throttle there, and in fact, he's not lifting off as they go into the braking zone. Well, I thought he might have been lifted to save fuel, but in the end, Luiz Pereira, I think, braking a bit earlier than perhaps Milton expects as they do swap the places around. I think these two drivers, they're both goading each other to pass each other because of the fact Luiz Pereira braking quite nice and early there, and Milton flying on through on the inside. It's almost as if they're inviting one to lead ahead of the other to say, yes, you can have the lead, I'll just save fuel behind you, given how close their pace is. But right now, neither one wanting to be that lead car, and that is a bit converse. It's a bit of an odd way of doing things, but you have to understand when two drivers are so closely matched on pace, well, in the end it's going to come down to strategy and open up a potential gap, because if you can't break the toe to each other, which in these GT3s will be in the region of 1.5 seconds, that's when it's felt, and by 1 second it's felt significantly, then they are going to try and essentially force the other to use a little bit more fuel or tyre life in order to cause them to lose out when that pit stop eventually comes around. But from two leaders who are fighting in a strategic fashion, we come down to two drivers who right now not battling for the lead, but just fighting on circuit, enjoying a good battle for 12th place in the Premier class. And it's Adam Baker versus Stuart Rice, as we do see what is the McLaren 750S being chased down by the Acura. And in fact, Rice getting a really good run there coming out of turn number 5, looking around the outside. And well, I think here it's going to be Baker who's going to be looking very vulnerable indeed to the apex. He will go in, and Rice in the end just cuts it back and says, okay, you're off the racing line, what are you going to do now? And the answer is it's going to be Baker trying to get a good run out of turn number 7 before the back stretch. But as we jump on board here with the Acura Stuart Rice, the Blue Sky Esports driver, close but not close enough in the tow here. But the difference is in the fact that Baker does also have a distance of Wesley Van Ren's 1 second ahead of him, so therefore it does mean that the slipstream is slightly negated between the two drivers, and therefore it's based on car pace. But onto the brakes they go, no change at the moment. But Stuart Rice definitely trying to make some progress as they come through turns 10A and 10B, but that progress not as forthcoming as we would like it to be. But over the crest and down, and from them we do look back to what is your Evo class leader. This is Steve Rubino, who's been leading since what has been the end of the opening lap of the race, with Wesley Van Ren's behind him, but Van Ren's is getting closer little by little. The delta in their lap times only by the hundredths. In fact, that last lap Rubino was 400ths faster compared to Wesley Van Ren's, but the point being that right now the two definitely very close on pace and not showing any signs of giving in as they wind and weave their way down through where's the S's. But as they do, well, there's a bit of a moment there coming into turn number 7, and that is Nick Stubb, who went out onto the grass down the entry into 7, and Vincent Loader going up the inside of him. But as they make the way in towards what will be the back stretch, Stubb extremely close there coming out of turn number 7, and practically side by side already, not more than a third of the way down there. And well, they're going to be side by side all the way then into the drop down towards the braking zone for turns 10A and B, and onto the brakes they will go. Stubb will get ahead on the outside, and Loader tucks back in behind. But right now definitely the pressure is on between these two, and Mathew Croft is only 1.5 seconds back, with Christopher Starsmore also there with him. So this fighting is costing them time, and it is costing them what is distance, not just to what is the top 3, but also the fact they are losing out with the rest of the field gradually creeping a little bit closer. But as that field continues to try and get closer and closer, and indeed we now start to make our way into what will be potential pit stop territory. Again, we have completed 23 minutes of racing, and there's plenty more to come. Well, you would imagine now any drivers are locked into a battle, they might be considering about an undercut strategy if they think it's viable. But the problem is with how short the lap is around here, and the fact it is quite a lengthy pit stop to put the fuel in to get to the end of the race, where you can change some tyres at the same time, but you won't be able to change all four with the amount of fuel that's got to go in. You will need to spend some extra time if you want to change all four tyres. You would imagine for some drivers around here right now, they're going to be thinking about the strategic options, as we do see Craig Tillotson still under pressure from Gareth Newton and Andre Montine, and well, the Romanian driver in the Acura chasing down the Briton as they make their way in towards turn number 1 once again in the fight for fourth place in the Evo class. And well, a good little scrap this one between them, and Montine right now just staying right with him, and Craig Tillotson being the Corvette driver who just cannot break away from this battle for 20th place overall, but he's going to do everything he can in order to try and not lose the position, because he would love to chase after Denny Plurger, who is only 5.5 seconds up the road. So Tillotson finds himself in a fight, but not the fight he wants to be in. He'd rather be in a class position fight, but it's not coming forward for the what is the 134 Corvette at this time, although a brilliant exit out of turn number 5, and that buys him almost the second there to play with versus Newton as they head in towards turn number 7 and onto that back straight. Coming out of the corner then and onwards they'll go towards the end of the lap. Well, from them we do look a little bit further down the order to Road Turfkeur, as we do see the Dutchman chasing after Matthew Hunter. Hunter still holding on to 6th place in the Evo class, lost out the 5th place a little bit earlier on through what was one of our earlier incidents which caused the field to be shuffled, but still pushing on as much as possible. We do say hello to a number of you in the YouTube chat there who we haven't said hello to previously, including what is, we'll hold the fort there ladies and gentlemen, because we've got a change of overall position, and that is Adam Baker being passed by Wesley Van Rens. But more importantly, here comes Stuart Rice. 2 wide they come through turns 2, 3 and 4. Into the S's they go. Surely they're not going to go 2 wide. They are. They give each other space, but Rice is knocked to the grass. It's a small tap. He rejoins. They're still side by side as they come through turn number 5. My good Lord, the commitment between the two of them there. And well, you can understand neither one wants to give up. Rice is still in it to win it. Baker's still on the inside as they come into the break-ins over turn number 6. Well, Baker there holds the inside. I wonder if Rice has got an automated slowdown he's going to have to serve. If he has, he'll need to serve it slow, because otherwise that will be turned into what will be a drive-through penalty. Grant Miller gets caught up behind all this. He's got Scott Kostrich right in his back right now, and as they make the way down, well, Kostrich is going to look around the outside of the Ford Mustang. I don't think Miller wants to give up the place. You can see there, look at how the Porsche pulls out, and as soon as it does out the toe, it's got no top-end speed whatsoever, and he has to tuck back in to give himself a little bit more. But here he goes then onto the inside of what is the chicane, and as he does so, well, Miller's not going to fight that one. He knows he doesn't need to fight the Premier Class driver. He just needs to let him go. He's not one of the ones who's going to stop him from getting points. But as they come down towards turn number 12, well, it's going to be Kostrich who's going to try and get closer and closer. I don't think Rice did pick up a slowdown for what's that transgression off the racing line, and as a result, he's reset himself back behind Adam Baker. But my good Lord, well, what a brilliant run from the two of them, not just to go 2 wide into the S's, but to emerge on the other side. It's still 2 wide, albeit via unconventional methods, but also keep it alive. But you can see how slowly they came out of turn number 5 as a result of that, and that's why you don't normally go 2 wide for this corner sequence, for the simple reason there's not enough room for one really, let alone 2 cars. As we are looking out my commentary booth window, a driver's into the pit lane, and it's Andrew Montine who's come on in from what is 5th place in Evo class, so that is a scheduled stop. He's going for the undercut here, and well, I think that might get a few drivers considering what they can do strategy wise, because it's a surprise and a welcome one to be certain for what is the ZX Sim Sports driver. He's going all in the strategic stakes here. He's decided to gamble, and as our drivers continue on, there's nobody else following that trend at the moment. Only one driver into the pit lane, but we're definitely in pit stop territory, and therefore could we see some changes in position or strategy for the likes of Robin Milton, for example, Ricardo Luiz Pereira. Well, I think these two, they're going to goad each other on to go as long as possible, for the simple reason neither one will want to take the gamble of coming into the pits and then coming out into traffic that could cost them the race win as they make the way on down into the S's and out of it. They've got a bit of traffic in front of them. That is going to be the car there, I do believe, the Porsche. Well, it's not Jan Nuggy. We're trying to see who it is. I think it might be Martin Cook as they come through. In fact, it's not Cook. He's not out on circuit. Let's get that corrected. But as they make the way on through, regardless of who is in the car, they're not making any obstruction whatsoever, and therefore everything carries on as they left off as they make the way out of the corner. In fact, it's the Moonshiners Racing Club machine there that's going on a little bit slowly, but right now trying to carry on its merry way. And well, from them, plenty more to come today in terms of those battles. Dean Sheesby into the pit lane. The Moonshiners Racing Club Acura has made its way on in, and well, I think there's going to be a few more pit stops to come, as we do have Mark Wesley into the pit lane as well. And, well, from them, Scott Kostrich battling with Stuart Rice, and Rice losing out there on the exit of 5 in towards 6. So it does look as though Kostrich now making a bit more progress as they come in towards what will be turn 7. Through the right-hander they go, and Adam Baker will be grateful for the breathing room this is gifting him. But at the same time as well as Kostrich, perhaps the faster driver of the trio right now, and is looking to try and take one and then another place as they head towards the midpoint of the race distance. Well, from them to Mathew Croft a bit further up the road. Croft has still got right behind him Christopher Starsmore, and intriguingly, ever since Vincent Loader got ahead of Croft, the lap times of Mathew Croft have fallen off slightly. Now, I wonder whether Croft is potentially struggling with a tyre problem here, because the ZX Sim Sports driver, we'd normally see him all over the back of Nick Stubb, but the pace has fallen away from that Porsche as he mounts the curb there at turn number 3, and well, he just does not seem to be happy right now. The only other thing is, of course, that perhaps he's trying to do a little bit of fuel saving, but he's losing a lot of time from where's the top 5 if he is going into a fuel saving strategy. Starsmore's close, but not really close enough to challenge at the moment, and Starsmore again in that Ferrari. He's an ever-present threat for a top 5 finish, but he's not quite on the pace. Circuit in the Americas was very different, but he does seem to have gone back to that mode, which is there's pace in the car, but not quite the same as the Porsche and the Acura. But this is Porsche and Acura territory, this circuit, understandably based on the balance of performance, given the fact you've got a lot of medium speed corners, they come thick and fast, you need quick and rapid fire direction changes. The only place they won't feel comfortable is on this back stretch, where the Ferrari will feel much nicer with its 5th and 6th gear, but the problem is it's only a limited run as they make the way on down, and well, right now the differences in machinery definitely showing their strengths and weaknesses, as we do see our 2 drivers here heading into the chicane. But speaking of pit stops, Robin Milton is into the pits from what is 2nd place, so therefore he's decided to come on in and will yield, in fact coming in from the lead of the race I should say, let me correct myself there, yielding the lead to Ricardo Luiz Pereira, but deciding to make it on strategy. So this is going to be interesting. He's decided to go for the undercut, and will Luiz Pereira follow him on the next lap, or will he stay out there and decide, you know what, as long as I've got clear track I can pump in the laps. Vincent Loader doing the same as well, so the Dutchman following on what is the guise of Robin Milton. So it's going to be interesting to see where they come out in the thick of it, whether they're able to come out in clear track or whether they get caught up. But this is now turning more and more towards a strategic race, and we should point out the car we were talking about earlier, the Moonshiners Racing Club car that was stepping clear of some of the lead lap drivers was James Fraser, as we finally discerned who that was. But coming from them to further down the order into the Evo class, Road Turf Cure chasing after Matthew Hunter in their fight for his 5th in the Evo class right now, on circuit at least. Well, no change between them there. Turf Cure getting close, but not close enough, and Hunter just staying ahead in the number 10 as he makes his way over the rise and down through the fall and onto another lap. But Turf Cure thereby now getting back into the hunt as they make the way across that timeline, and we're at the halfway point of the race. 30 minutes still to go. A pit stop as well for the pair of them. As you can see, Turf Cure getting close there, but being a bit too eager on the brakes in terms of how late he went into the corner. And there, Turf Cure going very deep, and in fact that gap opened up to a staggering amount, opened up to the best part of a second there, as a result of just missing his braking zone by the best part of what was about 10 metres. But coming down through the S's, well, we'll see Turf Cure potentially trying to close up based on his given last lap form. But Hunter right now just keeping his head down here and not letting anything shake him in terms of what drivers around him are trying to do. As they head up towards what will be at turn 6 and 7. Well, from them we look to Christian Malaskov, who decides, rather than battle with Steve Rubino, he's going to come into the pit lane with the Verano Academy driver, and in opting to do so, he's going to buy himself a little bit of a breather here and perhaps reassess the race. But he's been having a good race so far, credit where it's due to Malaskov, fighting inside the top 10, right up there in the thick of it, and had a great race start as well. So as he makes his way on down, he'll be feeling as though this race is going well. And meanwhile, Vincent Loader, who was one of the earlier Premier drives to pit, well, he makes his way at the side inside of Craig Tillotson there, who's yet to pit by comparison. But Loader right now, as much as he will be grateful for the early pit stop, he won't be grateful about the fact that battle will cost him about half a second, even though there was no fight from Tillotson, given the fact he knows he's on a different strategy. But the point being that Loader not on the racing line, can't take as much speed for the chicane, and that will naturally cost him some race time as he looks to try and beat what will be Mathew Croft and Nick Stubb to the post in the hunt for 3rd place as they roll the way on through. In fact, it'll be the hunt for 4th place, we should say, given the fact that it was Peter Duke who's still in 3rd, now up to 2nd with the pit stop of Robin Milton. But the point being that it's time that Vincent Loader right now having to absolutely dig in and set effective qualifying laps for what is the next 3 to 4 laps in order to try and leapfrog on time and be able to come back out ahead of Stubb and Croft. Speaking of Peter Duke, as I stumble over my words, well, right now Duke makes his way down the pit lane with the DDK Racing Team P machine, and he's decided enough's enough, it's time to come into the pit, as James Howarth and also some of the other drivers around him, including Jan Osberg and Rob McKee, all stay out there. Menoblem just behind behind, albeit a lap down, and will that open lap instant costing the Dutchman dear, as we do say hello in the YouTube chat there to Akure Bai, and also to Titan Nation, also there to, in fact I think it's Taito Nation I should say, also to David de Jong and Stephen Wilkinson, I believe, who is cheering on was the Simcast Racing UK drivers. But as they make the way through, well, right now Howarth carrying on here, and what I can imagine Laura Jane is tuning in and cheering on James Howarth. As I stumble over my words for a brief moment, such has been the intensity of the race, and it's slightly frazzled my brain. Well, as our drivers make the way on through, Howarth right now delivering an absolutely solid race and running in 5th place, but affecting towards the end of the top 10 overall and in the Premier class, given the way pit stops are playing out, but no sign of pit stop coming for this man as of yet. But meanwhile, speaking of signs of things to come, Christopher Starsmore getting a bit close to Mathew Croft again into the braking zone here for turns 10A and 10B, and therefore starting to show his hand a little bit potentially. I would imagine here the problem that Croft and Starsmore have is the fact that both of them want to make a pit stop. Nobody wants to reveal what the other is doing at the moment, and therefore, as they make their way in towards turn number 1, where it's going to be one of those situations where they may naturally just go longer and longer if they feel as though they're running at a steady pace and there's no need to pit to undercut each other. But I think Starsmore will be just thinking he's going to need to save as much fuel as possible in order to make that undercut as they roar the way down through turns 2, 3 and 4, and it may happen literally at the same time if they both come into the pits together. But these fuel tanks will continue to go a little bit longer. We normally do see those pit stops completed by the end of the 40th minute, if not sooner. Depends on the circuit, of course, and how much fuel they're using per lap. But Road Atlanta, you do use a lot of fuel here given the acceleration zones, and well, as our drivers make the way on through in towards turn number 6, no change between these two at the moment. But looking from them to roll Turfgear, chasing after Matthew Hunter again, still hunting down what is now 4th place in the Evo class with the pit stops that are unfolding. Onto the brakes they go. Will there be a change this time? And no, there will not. But meanwhile, hold up a second, there's been a bit of drama for Peter Duke, who's had a huge moment at turn number 1. And well, with that, having just only recently had his pit stop, this is going to completely upset the run for the DDK Racing Team driver, as he does come on back to the racing just ahead of Vincent Leuder. And well, Robin Milton's a little bit further up the road by 6 seconds. But what exactly happened to Peter Duke is the question. Well, we'll come to that shortly. Let's not cut away from the threat of Vincent Leuder trying to look for a move here on the 177 Acura as they come over the crest and down in towards turn number 6. With Leuder close, can he find a way to go all in turn 6? No, I don't think he can. As meanwhile, off camera, Ricardo Luiz Pereira is into the pit lane from what was the overall lead of this race, and that's going to be the big question mark on whether he will come out ahead of Milton or behind him based on the overcut versus undercut. But Peter Duke definitely having a bit of a nightmare moment, and well, that nightmare has materialised at a worst possible time given the fact he's only had a pit stop recently. So if he has got repair work, he's going to have to make 2 stops rather than the 1, and that's not going to be helpful what at all. It's in fact going to be a strategy that is undone. But from him, here's Luiz Pereira leaving the pit lane. Where is Milton in all this? And Robin Milton is nowhere to be seen. In fact, Milton's just making his way through what is the final corner now. So Robin Milton, who had a pit time of 26.05 seconds, I wonder whether they've changed all 4 tyres on that Acura, because by comparison, Ricardo Luiz Pereira a 14.47 stationary stop, that would be a sign they've had to change all 4 tyres. And will Luiz Pereira gambling on perhaps just changing 1 or 2, and if he was to only change 2, it'd be the tyres on the left hand side of the car to improve the grip for the right handers. You don't normally change the fronts, just the fronts or just the rears, because it will unbalance the car, but if you change the tyres on one side of the car, it can help through certain corners once the tyres are up to temperature. But Luiz Pereira suddenly pulling what is a 12-second gap over Robin Milton as a result of the pit stops, and well, that is a surprise and not welcome one to be sure if you're Robin Milton. But from them to what is Stuart Rice, who made his pit stop, and behind Scott Kostrich. Well, these two have been fighting previously before the pit stops, and now they're going to go fighting again after the pit stops. They come down through turns 2, 3 and 4. You can see it behind him, Dean Sheesby, who is giving a hot pursuit, and Sheesby's actually had a good race making his way out through the field. So therefore, as the drivers make the way on around right now, wrapping their way through the S's and in towards turn number 5. Well, Rice is there, but not close enough to be able to make a move, but definitely thinking about it as they come out of the corner and onwards towards what will be the right-hander at turn number 6. Grant Miller just in front of him. He's also served his pit stop. He's down to 4th in the Evo class, and will right now having served that pit stop, wondering where he's going to fit into the bigger picture. Matthew Hunter the same here as he leaves the pit lane. He makes way out from what was originally 5th place in Evo, albeit promoted to 4th as a result of a pit stop of another driver, and now he comes all the way out in 7th place in what's the Evo class behind Andre Montine and Gareth Newton, and we believe that is effectively where Matthew Hunter would be. As meanwhile in the pit lane now is Rob McKean and Wesley Van Rens, and Van Rens is in from the lead of the Evo class, and will it be just a normal pit pit stop because Steve Rubino was leading before Van Rens, well, before he came into the pit lane, and then Van Rens has followed. Well, here's Van Rens leaving the pit lane gradually. Can we get a view of where they all are on circuit? Well, Rubino's already gone on through. In fact, there is Rubino making his way up into turns 2, 3 and 4, and then Rens, meanwhile, well, he's got Rob McKee right behind him. So Van Rens has come out back in second place in the Evo class, but the problem is he has got what is a Premier driver right behind him, and then he's got an alternating pack of Evo and Premier drivers for what is Roll Turfkeur, also Christian Malaskov and Grant Miller behind. And the one who's gained the most in all this in the top 5 of the Evo class is Roll Turfkeur, who's moved up to 3rd place as a result of his pit stop. In fact, he's yet to pit. That's why he's moved so far up the order. So therefore, he's out of position, but he's pushing onwards. So therefore, Grant Miller is your 3rd place Evo driver, but he's 5 seconds off of this group. He's in fact lost out a significant period of time as a result of the way his pit stop has played out. But I don't think you'll mind this and the fact that Van Rens is under pressure. It's only going to hurt Van Rens in the long haul, and therefore potentially put him at risk of overheating his tyres. But Steve Rubino will be grateful because he'll just pull off into the distance now and hope that Van Rens cannot get any closer. But as they come down in towards what will be turn 10, well, McKee looking to the inside here versus Van Rens. Van Rens surely is not going to fight this, as McKee's going to go all in, and well, that's going to be the exact outcome there. As meanwhile, Christian Malaskov trying to find his way past Turfkeur. He wants to move forward because he wants to chase after McKee, because Malaskov trying to chase down what will be at 12th place, eventually 11th place with Craig Tillerson into the pit lane in the Premier class. So there's a lot of shuffling still to go on here, and Christian Malaskov right now trying to chase down one of his best results of the season, albeit he's finding that he's being held up a little bit by Evo class drivers, which are allowed to be in front of him. They're all in the lead lap, but I think he right now just wants them to step outside so that way he can go on the attack sooner rather than later. But will they be obliging? That's the big question as they come on down here. Well, right now when he's tucked in this close to Turfkeur, the obligation is not there, and well, from them looking back to Stuart Rice still very close here as they make their way down to the S's. And chasing after Kostridge, will they go right, left as they make the way on through, and will more pit stops unfolding as I look at my content booth window. Stubb, Starsmore and Usberg all now into the pit lane, serving the pit stops. Baker also coming in as well, so therefore it is pit stop time, no doubts about it. The fuel tanks have gone as long as they can, and Ricardo Luiz Pereira has retaken the lead of this race as he has left the pit lane much earlier, considering the fact that he did pit stop what was 5 laps ago. But what about Stubb? What about Starsmore? Well, here's Nick Stubb leaving the pit lane, and I believe this is going to promote him into 2nd place because Robin Milton's only coming through turn 1 now, and as he does so, well, he'll come out ahead of Starsmore. There's Christopher Starsmore, and then you've got Mathew Croft who comes up the hill and slices up the inside there. So Croft does get back ahead of Starsmore, albeit literally by a hair's width. So they reset to how they were before the pit stops, but right now Mathew Croft up into 4th, Starsmore up into 5th, Howarth up into 6th, Peter Duke has dropped to 7th for an incident that we don't know the story about, but we are about to find out what exactly happened to the DDK Racing team driver. But it's all been all shuffle inside the top 5 of the Premier class and overall, and the big stories are that Ricardo Luiz Pereira is comfortably leading this race now by a good portion of time. That's side by side between Sean Clark and Daniel Paul. These two were fighting much earlier on, and since their pit stop they've resumed the fighting. 2 wide they go into turn number 6 and then into 7, and it's going to be Clark on the inside there, albeit Daniel Paul on the outside. They give each other breathing room as the DXT Motorsports driver tries to outrun the flatline racing machine. James Howarth, who is a lap up on them, now makes his way on through, so they respect the blue flags, but Daniel Paul is able to get back ahead as a result of the blue flag. So I can imagine Clark right now will be fuming a little bit in the car as he tries to tuck in behind Howarth here to use Howarth as a little bit of a bulldozer to come through. Peter Duke up the inside there of Clark, and Clark right now not wanting to let it go, but also in another part of his mind wanting to respect the blue flag. Well, he does so in the end, but he does so knowing now he's also got coming over the crest around him what will be the car of none other than Vincent Loader, who's going to be trying to come on through. But Loader there now in the back as they come through 12. We'll look up the inside into turn number 1. So Sean Clark's race going from brilliant battle in action to frustrating obligations under blue flags, but then he does serve them, and he does so well. But now he's got to hope that he's going to gain the similar amount of time he's lost when we do have what is his rival of Daniel Paul having to let drivers on through. But that's going to be a different story that will come up shortly, as meanwhile we take a look back at what happened to Peter Duke on what was his exit from the pit lane, we believe. In fact, no, it was not. It was the lap after he'd exited the pit lane. This was going into turn number 1 up the inside of the DXT Motorsports Porsche, and in the end gets collected with it as he tries to look up the inside and will manage to get a car under control. Oh my good lord. And well, on that rejoin there, well, I believe that may have been what was while the Ellis Racing B machines had to take quick evasive action, and well, And Peter Duke, in the end, a bit of frustration, and that's why we saw him suddenly back on the racing line with Vincent Loader right behind, and it was because of him trying to go up the inside of a car that's a lap down, but coming from quite far back. And well, Hill has his interpretation of the events, but I'm sure other drivers will have their interpretations of the events, and I wouldn't be surprised if that one goes before the stewards after the racing today. But Peter Duke definitely having a bit of a frustrating moment there, and that's dropped him down to 7th overall and in what is the Premier class, and now looking to go on the attack once again to try and regain those places. We're coming back to your live racing pictures, and as we do, we look to the class positions once again on the left-hand side, and well, as we now head into the final 20 minutes of the race, and all the pit stops have been served. Everyone has come in for what is their mandatory pit stop in terms of putting fuel in the car and the option of changing tyres if needed. And well, since then, the top three may be relatively static at this point, with Luiz Pereira leading ahead of Nick Stubb, with Robin Milton trying to chase him down. But Mathew Croft versus Christopher Starsmore, this has taken a part two, and was they make the way on for the S's, with James Howarth only 1.5 seconds behind, and Peter Duke not too far behind either. You would imagine they are all going to come together as this race heads towards its natural conclusion, albeit it's going to come down to fine margins and small mistakes, we reckon. From them, Stuart Rice as well, further back, still fighting with Scott Kostrich. This has been one of the battles outside the top 10 that's been unstoppable and unmissable, as Grant Miller, the third place Evo driver, really leads this group of cars, and right now just does not want to get embroiled too much in it, but I don't think he's going to have a choice shortly as they come on down and through and in towards what will be at the next corner they go. The left-handers, James Pallett behind, is essentially a lap down in this group, running in what is 20th place in the Premier class, but still carrying on to get some points on the board. Well, into the braking zone they go. No change at the moment between them, but Stuart Rice right now very eager to get on through, but I think asking himself, what do I have to do in order to get past you? But from there, in terms of places being made, well, that is Christopher Starsmore there, going around the outside of Mathew Croft, so he's finally found his way on through, and that was on the exit of turn number 12. We believe it happened into 11, but Starsmore up into 4th place now in the Premier class and overall. And will we see Starsmore pull away? Well, Croft definitely seems to be struggling a little bit. We talked about it earlier, things did not seem to be connecting together towards the end of the first stint with regards to tyre life on that Porsche, or something's just not quite right in terms of giving the driver the confidence to attack this circuit lap after lap. And well, it's definitely showing now, because he makes his way on through the SS sequence. Starsmore is pulling away. He's already got a second over Luiz Croft as he's hit the apex curve there, turn number 5 a little bit high. Howarth now swings to the inside. Croft covers it off, and now he's going to switch back to the outside as Howarth trying to go all the way around the outside of turn number 6, using the confidence in the car there to get alongside into turn number 7. It's now going to be an old school drag race then coming out of turn 7, as Croft will give Howarth the space to coexist, and as they get on the throttle here now, it's going to be the battle of the old V8 from America versus the German engineering of the Porsche, the 6 cylinders. And well, they'll roar, they'll scream, but right now the guttural baseline of that Mustang is pulling ahead little by little as they make the way on down in towards turn number 10. It's side by side still. The Porsche will have the better brakes, but the Mustang's got the inside line. But who's going to be the victor here as they come through left into right? And the answer is James Howarth gets a nose ahead, gets ahead at the apex of 10B, and well, Mathew Croft loses out for a brief moment, albeit as they come over the crest and down. They've got Peter Duke right behind them here in this freeway battle for 5th place, and Howarth will be grateful that he's been able to get on through. But the problem will be now that Duke will be trying to come back, and as you can see, Croft there taking a quick look to the inside. It's a dummy to get Howarth to go off the line, and when it gets into Howarth's head, no doubt about it, as they head up the rise. You can see there in the rear-facing television cam what is a little bit of a look up the inside from Peter Duke, who gets very close, been in too close for comfort, as to back off. Vincent Loader's also getting onto the back of this battle, so we've got a 4-way battle for 5th place overall in the Premier class, and none too soon. With 15 minutes to go here, there's going to be a spectacle all the way for the next few minutes, if not all the way to the end of the race, as they make the way in towards what will be turn number 6 again, where it was only a lap ago where we did see Howarth make the move to start off that battle between the two of them. And now it looks like Howarth has been able to keep that gap nice and open, with Peter Duke meanwhile a whole second behind. And I think having to reset the car and go again in terms of how he feels behind the car and getting those front tyres and those front brakes to cool down a little bit, because there was a little bit of sniffle lunge into turn number 3, and I can imagine that's probably put the car through some stresses as they make the way in towards what will be at turns 10A and 10B down this long back straight. We can see Duke back in the tow, Lodo with him as well, and right now all equidistant from one another, all half a second from car to car to car, and in this quartet they'll all do the dance all the way to the end. But who will finish 5th? That's the question we'll wait to see the answer to. But as they've been fighting each other, and it's been brilliant battling between them, Stuart Rice meanwhile has finally found his way past Scott Kostrich for what was 16th place overall, but 13th place in the Premier class. And for those wondering how he got it done, here's the replay. And this was coming down into the chicane only moments ago, and from what was the left into right, well, there we can see Kostrich getting very close to the back of Grant Miller. In fact, stumbles over the back of the Ford Mustang, and in the end has to yield the position. And well, a lot of wheel spin there for what's Kostrich. I wonder whether that was a lot of power oversteer on corner exit and having to get the car corrected. But coming from them, then back to your live racing pictures. Well, as we do so, speaking of Stuart Rice, well, he's now behind Grant Miller and what is the rather large, luxurious Mustang there in terms of Grant Miller enjoying his run of the race and settling into third in the Evo class. Well, Rice will want to get on through quickly as quickly as possible because he will not want Kostic right behind him, putting on the same pressure that he had to put on Kostic only a few laps ago as they make the way down. As James Fraser just in front of him a lap down, but coming into the S's here, and Fraser will not need to obey the blue flags through here. There's nowhere to go. He'll do it on the exit at turn number 5 in terms of letting the drivers through. It lets the car run out wide there onto the gravel and onto the escape road. Well, here they come, and it's going to be Kostic versus Rice part 2. Kostic on the right of the picture. Rice defends the inside too while they come in towards turn number 6, using the Porsche's grip there. Does Kostic to go all the way around the outside? Onto the brakes they go, and now as they exit the corner, well, it's going to be a queue of cars behind them, and well, a queue of lap down cars as it's Kostic around the outside there who gets the better exit at turn number 7, and Rice has to use the position, but he'll only yield it to get into the slipstream to go back on the counter attack very shortly. And here they go then, and now it's going to be 6-cylinder and 6-cylinder as they make the way in towards 10, and as they come down towards the braking zone, well, it looks like Kostic is going to be ahead, and Rice in the end has to back off there, but throwing everything at this, and a brilliant attempt, but in the end, with the way the traffic fell through the S's, it's cost Rice dearly. But I don't think Rice is done yet, and I think he's going to be looking to go for the move into turn 1, albeit as close as he is right now. A little bit of a wobble there on the exit at turn number 12, and well, those tyres definitely starting to get hot and the grip levels falling. But from them, well, James Howarth made that move on Mathew Croft. He's now got a little bit of problem in front of him in the fact that he does, I believe, that is the car Matthew Hunter in front, and Matthew Hunter is running in 7th place in the Evo class. So a little bit of traffic definitely wounded him as he made his way into turn number 7, but he'll be hoping that he's got enough straight line performance in order to pull away from Croft as they make the way down. But Croft is there. He's been 2 attempts, but he's getting no closer as they make the way down, albeit he's inching little by little into position. He's going to look to the braking zone, but you can see Howarth there goes defensive to the inside. Hard on the brakes they go. Peter Duke being passed by Loader in the rear of the picture as they make the way through. Well, Howarth holds on, but Loader goes around the outside to inside and manages to keep Peter Duke at bay. And how on earth Vincent Loader got that done? We can see Duke's not too happy about it, flashing his lights there, but Loader being very unconventional and finding a way to get back into 7th place in what is the overall Premier category, even if he has to use a little bit of the grass in order to do so. As they come in towards turn at number 1, well, Duke's going to try and come back at him once again. The flash of the lights there just to show he's not too pleased about it, but the thing is, he'll want to try and get it done fair and square on the circuit as Duke absolutely attacking, but goes a little bit deep there into the S's and rides over the first curve coming out of turn number 4. That will upset the balance of the Acura, and he won't be able to get any closer at this point. We will try to do so a little bit later on. Separately, the battle between Stuart Rice and what was at the time Scott Kostic, so that has come to a pause, with Rice being involved in an incident that's happened off camera soon after we left them. So we will try and get you an update on that when we can, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, goodness me, there's a big slide there from where Vincent Loader. The car goes around, and the Porsche 992 comes to a standstill on the grass there before turn number 7, just trying to carry a bit too much speed and probably delaying the downshift in order to be a much more aggressive and use engine braking. And in the end, Vincent Loader making a small mistake, but it could have been a huge one if it had gone all the way round, but thankfully gets it to slide to a halt and drops to 8th place overall in Premier, and Peter Duke finally gets the place back there, albeit Vincent Loader being forced into an error of his own volition. But from that, speaking from one error to another, well, we do look back to what happened to Stuart Rice only moments ago, and was this an error of his own doing coming through at turn number 5, and this was on lap number 36. Yes, as you can see, the car jinks one way, then the other, and goes absolutely flying into the barrier there on the right of the circuit and ricochets out to left, and Stuart Rice in the end will not be too pleased about that. He's able to get it turned around, but I wouldn't be surprised if that Acura is going to have to come into the pit lane in order to go for repair work, and it is already in the pit lane as I look out my commentary booth window. But as we come back to your live racing, we're still 10 minutes left on the clock. Still plenty of battles to unfold here at Road Atlanta. And well, Howarth versus Croft is one of them. Another one that's been happening and brewing in the background is Adam Baker versus Rob McKee, the LS Racing B machine, in what is the very shiny blue and black paint versus the DXT Motorsports pink machine as it makes throughout the hill. It's the battle of McLarens. And well, right now, no change between them, but Baker holding on for what is 10th place in the Premier class and 11th place overall, with Christian Malaskov close behind, and also Vesely Van Rens. This quartet also being caught up to by what is Grant Miller little by little bit. There's a way to go before Grant Miller gets there. He is 7 seconds off it right now. In fact, in his last couple of laps, Miller has lost the pace off of this group, but I can imagine that's because he's been having to contend with what is Stuart Rice and Scott Kostic behind him. But as they make the way around, also we've got a growing battle here for 4th place in the Evo class, and that's Gareth Newton versus Andre Montine. And we're coming out to turn number 1. The Acura driver close, but not close enough to think about a move, and having to back off there on the exit 1. You can see the car wobbling a little bit, and I think that's Montine just trying to carry so much speed, but in the dirty air, losing some rear downforce, and as a result, the car starting to pitch uncontrollably and having to let the car calm down before he really went on the attack as they catch up to the back of Craig Tillotson, who right now struggling through the S's, and that's going to give Montine every opportunity here to get side by side. So Tillotson having a slow run for the S's in turn 5, and now Montine trying to go around the outside here in towards what will be turn number 6, and well, you can do it, but remember there's a long straight coming up as well. It's going to be too wide in towards turn 7, but Montine will get a nose ahead here into the braking zone. Being seen there, Newton not backing out as the Kame GP2 Porsche driver holds it tight inside line on corner exit. Montine will get ahead, but now it will be the game of is he going to get the draft, or will Montine have too much straight line speed, because Tillotson is 1.2 seconds up the road, so it's a distant tow, but it's by no means as pronounced as the tow that Newton will get off the back of his Acura rival as they come down the hill in towards turn number 10, and the answer there is that Newton takes a peek but decides against it, and Montine moves up into 4th place in Evo class there. Lovely move, and there's an Alexis Sinsport Acura driver absolutely putting on the pace here with time running out, but from them, well, more still to come, of course, in the fact we do have the McKee versus Baker battle with Malaskov right on the back of it as well. And Christian Malaskov right now so close at this point that he could reach out and touch the rear of his rivals, but he dare not dream to do so because he won't attack on the rear. But the Rhino Academy driver here getting closer by the moment as we jump on board with the Porsche 992 and the 107 driver from Romania here. We can see that gap to the McLaren sitting at a static what is 2.5 tenths, as the McLaren does have the toe of Baker in front as well. Looking to the inside there in towards the chicane, decides not to, decides he's too far back to go for it as he puts the wipers on to get some of the dirt and stones off of the windscreen as they come out of 10B. Well, Malaskov had a lovely run there out of the chicane, cutting the apex absolutely spot on, and in towards turn number 12 they go through the right hander, and it's turning a little bit earlier there to offset the dirty air that's causing that front end to want to understeer. It's only natural to do so for the Rhino Academy driver, but right now definitely showing one of his best performances of the season, as we do see McKee going a little bit deep, and well, it's going to cost him momentum up the hill into turns 2 and 3, but Malaskov too far back to really look for it here, and right now these drivers all trying to push each other into a mistake as there McKee making another error coming over the crest of 3 in towards turn number 4. That McLaren looking very unsettled right now, and well, that will tell you one thing, and that is that Rob McKee is absolutely having to attack this circuit in order to stay ahead of Malaskov, and that's a nice place to be for the Rhino Academy driver, because by comparison, of course, we're only riding on board here, but it does seem as though much smoother lines for the 107, and smooth lines is going to guarantee you what is a lack of mistakes around Road Atlanta, as we see their poor run out of the final quarter of the first half of lap from McKee, and Malaskov's going to have the best chance he can here now. He's going to be in the tow. In what is McKee not too close to Baker in front. It's now going to be an opportunity to look around the outside. Well, Baker's has made it clear that he's running off towards Steve Rubino, so McKee's going to have to go the only way he can do so, and that is into the middle of the road to go defensive, but Malaskov will look to the outside now, try to go all the way around under braking here, use the better brakes of the Porsche, but McKee goes defensive there, straight lines his way straight to the second apex, but does he get it connected? Yes, he does, and Rob McKee with an absolutely fast and furious run through the chicane manages to hold on, with Wesley Van Ren's now tucking onto the back of this as they make the way on through. Sean Clark there opting to stealth racing line and go slowly to respect the blue flags, and up towards what will be turn 1 they go. Well, right now we've definitely got a fighty Malaskov here chasing after his rivals, but can he get past Rob McKee? Can he potentially also pass Adam Baker to get a 10th place in the Premier class, or will time run out with only 5 minutes left on the clock plus the final lap? We'll place your bets, ladies and gentlemen. I can see there Katie Kitty Eames absolutely cheering on Malaskov with fever in the YouTube chat. The Rhino Academy crowd will be absolutely egging him on as much as possible here, but not getting on the radio to him. They'll want the 107 drive to just concentrate, knowing he'll be pushing it to the absolute limit as they make the way up towards what is turns number 6 again. And into the right-hander, and it is a long line of cars here with Steve Rubino, the Evo leader, right at the front of it, and Wesley Van Rens right at the back of it, the second place Evo driver. So for Rubino right now, his directive will be, well, don't fight them too hard, but don't let them get on through if you can help it, for the simple reason the Hobo Racing Machine will want to come home victorious here today, and if it gets embroiled into the battle with only a couple of minutes to go, who knows how Van Rens will come through that field if he can do so in order to snatch that class victory off of Rubino that really has held on to this since the very start of the race. But we will see how that all plays out in reality as they make the way on around. And whilst all this has been happening, we should point out, ladies and gentlemen, race leader Ricardo Luiz Pereira, well, his advantage on the exit of pits was the best part of 10 if not 12 seconds. That advantage has been slashed down to 3.6 seconds, and he has been losing what is 4 tenths of a second a lap to Nick Stubb, and I wonder there was some fuel saving going on. Robin Milton, meanwhile, is lapping in the low 119s. He's been gaining a whole second every time, but from them we've got side by side here to James Howarth and Mathew Croft, as Croft going around the outside there, however, in the battle for what is his 5th place. 2 wide they come in towards turn number 7, and however right now, back under pressure, here comes Peter Duke, who's going to make it 3 wide, and they don't do things by halves to these Premier drivers as they make the way down the back straight, but as they do, well, Croft is ahead, but that Mustang is going to open up the legs right now, and Peter Duke meanwhile is on at that outside line. As you can see there, Howard tucks down to the outside, Duke tucks back in, he hasn't got any straight line speed. Croft goes defensive, they come on down the hill, and Will Croft in the end goes all the way to the inside. Howard runs out of road, Duke goes around the outside, so Croft places perfectly. Duke's on the inside into the second part of the chicane, and now it's going to be Duke versus Howard, albeit Duke has to back out. There gets a bit of wheel spin, the rear cuts loose, and as a result, Mathew Croft moves up into 5th place, and Howard is absolutely now going to be wondering how on earth I just had 5th place stolen from underneath me, and Mathew Croft playing that absolutely perfectly, getting Peter Duke to essentially act as his guard, albeit I don't think Peter Duke wanted to. He wanted to get the place off of the pair of them, but in the end, Croft playing it smart and forcing Howard to have to look backwards rather than forwards, and now can he break away? Well, I suspect the answer will be no to that, because right now, if anything is to go for based on the last 10 laps, these two have been inseparable on pace, and Peter Duke would love to also make it a menage a trois as they come in towards turn number 5 and onwards, as they make the way out and up towards turn number 6. Well, Duke there in a poor run out of turn 5. That's going to cost him some time as Howard tries to go back on the offensive once again, but still time remaining in this race. There's plenty of time to go fighting in the fact that the laps coming as quick as they do, and your race leader being here as he makes his way past some cars that are a lap down, getting ahead now Craig Tillotson and also Andre Montine. So now he's lapped up to what will be 18th place in this field, where Ricardo Luiz Pereira will have at least 2 more laps left in him as he makes his way towards the end of what is lap number 43. So we're expecting 45 laps here over the course of the hour, and right now the Vulcan Motorsport silver driver just carrying on as he started this race, and that is with ultimate consistency. But looking back to where's Adam Baker versus Christian Malaskov here, was they make the way on down. Rob McKee has fallen behind this fight and will powering the way on through at this point. What exactly happened to enable Malaskov to get ahead of Rob McKee, I hear you ask? Well, we will get a very quick replay of that, or will we? In fact, we may not here, because there's going to be a move from the LS Racing B McLaren of Baker up the inside of Rubino, albeit Rubino there goes deep intense. He tries to hold on to the position, but he absolutely makes a ham sandwich all the way to the chicane, and Baker does so as well as Christian Malaskov comes on through. But here comes Van Rens, and Van Rens now sees a golden opportunity to get ahead of while the Premier tries, but 2 wide through the final corner, it doesn't go, and Van Rens backs off there, but Malaskov uses the opportunity to get ahead as Jan Usberg is in the pit lane. Now why? I think that's a splash and dash of fuel there for Usberg, and if so, that's heartbreaking because he was running inside the top 10. So for Christian Malaskov, this is suddenly 9th place in the Premier class that's up for grabs now, and he needs to hold on to it. But from them, we do have what is side by side. It's all changing between Howard, Duke, and what is Croft. As Duke goes sideways, he goes sideways into turn 7, and I think that might have been where he's just coming too aggressively, and Loader comes on through, and Duke and Loader make contact to each other with 1 minute left on the clock. It's all absolutely blowing up on our screens here in terms of the moments, and whilst they make the way on through, Peter Duke and Vincent Loader right now, they'll both have some damage to their cars, but the point being here is that Peter Duke will gradually pull ahead. But can we get a quick replay as to what exactly happened there? Yes, we can, and where it will be quick, ladies and gentlemen, and this was through the S's. Mathew Croft had a very poor run all the way through in towards turn number 5, and Howard up the inside on the exit of turn number 5 to then look to take the move down in towards what was turn number 6, and well, that's how it all kicked off. And Peter Duke in the end, I think, just simply carrying a bit too much speed in towards turn number 7 into that braking zone. He went. Was he tapped? Not very sure about it, the camera angle not being very obliging, but that's what happened to Peter Duke. We've got to come back now as we've got Vincent Loader into the pits. Peter Duke's back ahead of him, and in all of this, whilst it's all been happening, well, we're not going to have any more replays now because we're less than 10 seconds left on the clock. Ricardo Luiz Pereira right now is heading on down the back straight for the final time today to complete today's race, albeit he's got a bit of time to go. In terms of other close battles out there, well, Christian Malaskov is still ahead of Adam Baker at this time. This is now for 8th in the Premier class, with what was Vincent Loader having to come into the pit lane for repair work on the car, we do believe. So therefore, Malaskov right now really will be pleased with how this has all played out, no doubt about it. And the Run Academy team are going to be absolutely losing it down in the pit lane in terms of the joy they'll be feeling. But meanwhile, Ricardo Luiz Pereira makes his way over the rise and down, and well, it's been a rise and fall in the championship, but he's back on a rise because Ricardo Luiz Pereira returns to winning ways here at Road Atlanta, taking victory overall and in the Premier class ahead of Nick Stubb by 3 seconds, and returns to the podium there, and it'll be Robin Milton on his debut who finishes 3rd in a brilliant drive ahead of Christopher Starsmore, who takes 4th place there for Simcast Racing UK, ahead of James Howarth, who holds on to 5th place place. He'll be absolutely ecstatic about that one. Then Mathew Croft will finish. Well, in fact, Mathew Croft has parked up there. Is he giving the place back to somebody? I'm not quite sure, but Mathew Croft parked up. I think he feels as though he's responsible for the contact with Peter Duke. So Peter Duke in the end will come on home in 6th with Mathew Croft yielding the position, and Steve Rubino will in the end come through to take Evo victory there. What a return to the top for the Hobo Racing Mustang ahead of Christian Malaskov, Adam Baker and Wesley Van Rens, who's best the rest in 11th, but second place in Evo class. Rob McKee finishes in 10th place in Premier just behind, and well, between them then it's Grant Miller who finishes 3rd in the Evo class. They have another solid podium finish ahead of Dean Sheesby and Andre Montine, who takes what is 4th place in the Evo class, a lap down. But goodness me, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to need to take a breather from that, because that was an absolutely chaotic final 5 minutes for what was this race here at Road Atlanta. But anything could happen at the roller coaster ride of road race, and it normally does. But one thing that is certain is that for Ricardo Luiz Pereira, as he just calls the car in down there and decides to take to the escape road, using what is the cut road there for the club circuit, well, for the Broken Motorsport Silver driver, it was an absolutely perfect run. Whilst he was put under pressure from Robin Milton, it was the separation of a pit stop there between the two of them as Milton makes his way on down. And he'll be wondering, why did they change all 4 tyres on the car today? Because for the Acura NSX driver, that cost him the chance to fight for the victory. But he'll still be happy of how it's played out on his debut. Between the two of them, Nick Stubb with another solid performance there. I think expecting a 3rd place, but in the end being rewarded with a 2nd. And the Porsche 992 Drivers Championship campaign definitely on a good run. But speaking of good runs, well, Christopher Starsmore 4th place in the end, and what another brilliant drive for the Ferrari driver, and James Howarth holding on to 5th under exceptional pressure from both Peter Duke and Mathew Croft, and that sportsmanship from Mathew Croft to stop literally a metre from the finish line to let Duke take the place. Well, I think he feels they was responsible for turning Duke at what was turn number 7. We couldn't quite see it on camera, but in the end, giving the place to Peter Duke, and I'm sure the Acura driver will be very grateful for it. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, as we do see Jan Usberg, and we'd love to know the story as to why he came in right at the end of the race. I suspect it would have been for a quick splash and dash of fuel, and if so, heartbreak there, when in fact it wasn't registered as stationary time. I wonder if it was a drive-through penalty for track limit, but Usberg there losing out on a top 10 finish, no doubt about it. There's still a few more rounds in the championship to go, and well, in terms of other finishes, Matthew Hunter there as he joins up with the Simcast Racing UK team. On his debut, and a bit of an emotional debut, 23rd overall, 7th in the Evo class, was fighting at one point for a top 5 finish in the Evo class, but an absolutely solid drive from the Ferrari driver still, and some good points to start off his season as he brings the car to a halt. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, let's take a look at those race results subject to any stewards' inquiries. And here they are. Some absolutely fantastic racing throughout the entirety of today. But after 60 minutes of absolutely intense racing action, as in fact, I think our results tower doesn't even want to come up on screen, given how tired it is from all the brilliant racing action. We are just trying to get the race results up on the screen. And here they come at long last. They finally made it up on the screen. They were a little bit shy, given how brilliant the racing was. But here we are. And Ricardo Luiz Pereira taking victory for Vulcan Motorsport Silver in round number 6 of the Evolution Sim Racing GT3 Championship Season 8, as proudly brought to you on iRacing and powered by Trophy.ai in Split B. He took victory in the end by 3 seconds over Nick Stubb, the Vulcan fastest by Glass Tech Racing driver, not quite having the pace of the leading Acura today, but having the consistency and the strategy to make sure he'd be on the podium, and in the end rewarded with a 2nd place. Robin Milton, an extended pit stop in the end, cost him the right to challenge for the victory, but still showing great race leading pace in the early stages today, and the 155 driver from the privateer outfit finishing in 3rd on his debut, ahead of Christopher Starsmore there, 4th for Simcast Racing UK, and James Howarth completing the top 5 in an absolutely fast and furious do-or-die battle for the final spot in the top 5 for DXT Motorsports. From the Ford Mustang driver, it was Peter Duke for DDK Racing Team who finished 6th, and a brilliant bit of sportsmanship between Mathew Croft and himself, with Croft yielding the position at the finish line to take 7th place instead for ZX's Sim Sports, and then Steve Rubino, what a drive from him to be back on top in the Evo class, taking Evo class victory there for Hobo Racing, and with it 8th place overall. Christian Malaskov scoring his best performance of the season, 9th place there for Rhino Academy, and then Ellis Racing B's Adam Baker, also a very good performance there, returning to the form we saw at the start of the season in 10th place. Best of the rest in 11th was Wesley Van Rens, a Racing League Hub, and what a drive from Wesley Van Rens in the end to finish 2nd place in the Evo class. Didn't quite work out today in terms of that race start by comparison, but still to be back on the podium and with that pole position up in the first place, he'll be absolutely pleased there. The fact they have seemed to have ironed out all the problems that the Ferrari for Racing League Hub was having. Your top 15 was completed by Rob McKee for DXT Motorsports, Jan Usberg with that late drive-through penalty for Nyforce at Glass Tech Racing, Vincent Loder for Sim Racing Team Lowlands with the damage on the car at the end, and Scott Kostrich there for Kame GP2 Porsche. And outside of what was your lead lap finishes, the last of which was in 17th place, Dean Sheesby for Moonshiners Racing Club, having come through the back of the field, won a drive to 17th place. We did see lap down finishes for Andre Montine, Craig Tillerson and Gareth Newton to complete your top 20. Also Road Turf Courier, also there Danny Veer, and as we continue our way down through the finishes there, it was a lap down all the way to what is Sean Clark in 28th place for DXT Motorsports. 2 laps down to Denny Plurger, James Fraser, Mark Wesley, Rob Gregg, and in fact 3 laps down there to Rob Gregg, as my eyes do deceive me, and also their retirements for Menno Blum, Martin Kirk, Eduardo Andino, Jan Nagy, Jim Fox, Alex Boniface, Robert Nobles and Charlie Stoffard, who didn't quite make it across the start-finish line before that big shunt right at the start. So 40 starters and in the end a grand total of what is 32 finishers, and of those, ladies and gentlemen, 18 on the lead lap. Well, let's take a look at those race results in the individual classes as well, starting with the Premier class. And as we can see here, Ricardo Luiz Pereira, your winner for Vulcan Motorsport Silver in the end, and what a drive in the Premier class here at Road Atlanta today, ahead of Nick Stubb for Vulcan Fasters by Glass Tech Racing and Robin Milton for the Privateer outfit. Christopher Starsmore, an absolutely brilliant drive to 4th place there, and well, having held on to 6th place for so long, gradually picking up the pieces as others dropped the pieces along the way. And then James Howarth, 5th place there for DXT Motorsports in a freeway fight between himself, Peter Dew and Mathew Croft. But the DDK Racing Team and Z-Axis Sim Sports drivers in the end end up fighting each other more than Howarth, and Howarth was able to hold on. Christian Malskov was in the 8th for Rhino Academy and will be very happy with that result. Head of Adam Baker, he fought with all the way through the second stint of the race for LS Racing B, and Rob McKee for DXT Motorsports returns to the top 10 there in the 117, albeit in a race where I think he'll feel as though there were more points up for grabs if things had worked out differently. Janusberg was 11th, best to rest in the Premier class for Nyforce at Glass Tech Racing, and it was Sim Racing Team Lowlands Vincent Loder, Scott Kostrich for Kame GP2 Porsche, and Dean Sheesby who finished the lead lap finishers of the Premier class. In 14th place there for Moonshiners Racing Club, with Craig Tillerson a lap down in 15th for Rhino Academy. A race today where the pace just was not forthcoming for the Corvette driver, but still plenty of work to do, and we've still got 4 rounds of the championship remaining, and I'm sure he's going to have a better day in a week's time. Danny Veer, James Pallett, Stuart Rice, Ros Northbury and Denny Plurger completed the top 20, with Plurger 2 laps down there for MJK Sim Racing, and it was retirements unfortunately for Menno Blum and Jim Fox. And also, well, that completes what is your Premier class finishing positions. But then coming on to the Evo class, last but by no means least, and here we did see Steve Rubino, your winner in Evo by 3.3 seconds for Hobo Racing over Racing League Hub's Ferrari of Wesley Van Rens. The Ford today beat the Ferrari on its home soil, but it could be a very different story at Le Mans in a week's time. Grant Miller there, another podium finish, keeping that consistent run of podiums going for Phoenix Racing, the Ford Mustang there, and your championship leader will find himself very close with Van Rens out of this round, but still he'll be happy with the result. He was a further 7 seconds behind. And then we saw Andre Montine finish a lap down there for Z-Axis Sim Sports, but 4th place to add to a good run of top 5s that he's recently had in the Evo class, ahead of Gareth Newton for Kame GP2 Porsche, and it was rolled Turf Courier in 6th place for MJK Sim Racing. Not quite on the pace today, but good strategy and stayed out of trouble, and that enabled him to move ahead of Matthew Hunter on his debut for Simcast Racing UK. Daniel Paul was 8th, meanwhile, for Flatline Racing in his brilliant battle with Sean Clark, and DXT Motorsports, his driver, losing out in that battle in the end to finish 9th, with James Fraser 2 laps down for Moonshiners Racing Club, completing the Evo top 10. Mark Wesley was best of the rest, and there was Rob Gregg, also was 2 laps down there for LS Racing B, ahead of, well, in fact, that was Rob Gregg, or I should say, was at 3 laps down there, Mark Wesley just in front of him, and he was your last of the finishers, was Rob Gregg for Moonshiners Racing Club. Unfortunately, retirements for Martin Kug, Eduardo Andino, Jan Nagy, Alex Boniface, Robert Nobles and Charlie Stoffard, but still plenty to look forward to for them, as we've still got many around to come. So that's all of your race results, ladies and gentlemen, and what a race it was. And well, it does mean we now have the opportunity to have a bit of a breather before we do make our way into our post-round interviews. And whilst you are waiting, we'll be back in approximately 7 to 8 minutes time. Do let us know in the YouTube chat what parts of the race you enjoyed, what have been your favourite moments of today. And if you haven't already, feel free to give us a like on the video. It always helps. And also it tells us that we're doing something right here at Evolution Sim Racing while broadcast. And if you aren't already subscribed to the channel, then why not do so? So that way you can stay up to date with all the latest racing action at Evolution Sim Racing, both on Thursdays and Sundays. But without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to step away and we're back in approximately 7 to 8 minutes time for those post-round interviews. Don't go anywhere. You won't want to miss them. We'll see you shortly.
Of the green flag, and there we go. Tristan immediately getting the jump on his teammate Luke Lucchese, and he's going to have to go the long way around the outside. It's not done yet because Luke will have that favoured inside line going into turn one, side by side. Has had a good start. He's up 2 places around the outside of Luke Lucchese, 3 wide there. The blue Acura on the inside. Hayden Phoenix Miller has gone from 4th to 1st in the matter of 1 braking zone there, and he will carry these drivers now down in toward turn 4. Great start there for the debutant who had strong qualifying pace, and now he might be up with an opportunity of making that stick if he can get the clean air in the next, and Plurg could have a good run here. Let's ride on board. How does the Noblica defend going into the chicane? Is Plurg going to do that tactic where you just stay there right until the last? The Noblica moves over to the entry into the chicane. Good driving. That's a wobble by Tristan, and he's off the road. He's going to lose the position. Is he going to stick up the inside? No. And is Justin Eloff going to fancy his chances? No, he stays.
Watkins Glen, and to have only 9 minutes till we reset and go again gives, I think, the drivers a bit of a moment to pause for thought, because how are you going to manage this, especially if you're 3 wide down the main straight? Humphrey, Leskinen, Katrali all don't get out. Raj Harper 2x2 into the opening corner. Outside line taken for Humphreys. Also a little bit of time on the exit though, as it looks like it's a better run for Cali Leskinen, the leader now in that pro class, as they run their way up the hill through 2 and 3. It looks like Raz Harper's got the best run, and now we could see both elite drivers come through on both pro drivers. So they'll have to get it done on the outside of the bus stop, and that is going to be more than difficult to do. Who's going to get the slipstream? That could be crucial. Now will be on the clock as the pace car is about to roll back in. GT3, so many of them about to get racing. GT4 is just in behind as well. A brand new season is about to get going here at the Saxon Ring. It's ESR's GT European Championship, and Anton Kalo will lead us to green for the opening time this season. Jason Baxter and Jenny Tehar just in behind as the lights are on. The green flag flies, and there's a couple of drivers pulling out immediately of the pack. 3 wide, nearly 4 wide into the opening turn, with Denzel Clarkson trying to find an inside line. Jenny Tehar as well.
More, he's got Craig Hewlett in P11 just coming down the pit lane now with Henry Garcia, so this is going to end up being quite a tight battle. If they're going to also have Pedro to deal with, he would just be coming out in front of them. Yeah, he's a little bit further down the road, so these two are going side by side through a very, very tricky section. Looks like Craig's got the better of it done for the moment.
Seconds in the pit strategy, whether it's a 20-minute overcut, 20-minute undercut, we'll have to wait and see. Meanwhile, Jenny Tehar and Jason Baxter are fighting it out for the lead of the overall race. Baxter trying to make his way through. It'll have to be an outside line into turn 2 where a GT4 sits on the racing line. That's the number 14 that they have to negotiate their way around. But as they run through turns 2 and through turn 3, they don't have to now worry about that GT4 any longer, and can continue working their way down a long way, and it can help you build in things like GT3, maybe some prototype cars as well. But yeah, it's so impressive to see him doing so well at the front of the field. Joe Glass getting himself, his teammate I should mention, as I said. Oh, it's interesting to that. That's a send from Dave Van Dam very late on the brakes into turn 1, but he's got it stopped in the apex. That's an incredible move. Very, very surprising for Joe Glass to find a car on his inside there, but effective for Dave Van Dam, and he has caught Joe Glass napping.
of the green flag, and there we go. Tristan immediately getting the jump on his teammate Luke Lucchese, and he's going to have to go the long way around the outside. It's not done yet because Luke will have that favoured inside line going into turn one. Side by side go, has had a good start. He's up 2 places around the outside of Luke Lucchese, 3 wide there, the blue Acura on the inside. Hayden Phoenix Miller has gone from 4th to 1st in the matter of 1 braking zone there, and he will carry these drivers now down in toward turn 4. Great start there for the debutant who had strong qualifying pace, and now he might be up with an opportunity of making that stick if he can get the clean air in the next, and Plug could have a good run here. Let's ride on board. How does Denoblica defend going into the chicane? Is Plug going to do that tactic where you just stay there right until the last? Denoblica moves over to the entry into the chicane. Good driving. That's a wobble by Tristan, and he's off the road. He's going to lose the position. Is he going to stick up the inside? No. And is Justin Eloff going to fancy his chances? No, he stays.
Watkins Glen, and to have only 9 minutes till we reset and go again gives, I think, the drivers a bit of a moment to pause for thought, because how are you going to manage this, especially if you're 3 wide down the main straight? Humphrey, Leskinen, Katrali all don't get out Raj Parida 2x2 into the opening corner. Outside line taken for Humphreys. Also a little bit of time on the exit though, as it looks like it's a better run for Cali Leskinen, the leader now in that pro class, as they run their way up the hill through 2 and 3. It looks like Raz Harper's got the best run, and now we could see both elite drivers come through on both pro drivers. They'll have to get it done on the outside of the bus stop, and that is going to be more than difficult to do. Who's going to get the slipstream? That could be crucial. Now will be on the clock as the pace car is about to roll back in. GT3, so many of them about to get racing. GT4 is just in behind as well. A brand new season is about to get going here at the Saxon Ring. It's ESR's GT European Championship, and Anton Kalo will lead us to green for the opening time this season. Jason Baxter and Jenny Tehar just in behind as the lights are on. The green flag flies, and there's a couple of drivers pulling out immediately of the pack. 3 wide, nearly 4 wide into the opening turn, with Denzel Clarkson trying to find an inside line. Jenny Tehar as well.
More, he's got Craig Hewlett in P11 just coming down the pit lane now with Henry Garcia, so this is going to end up being quite a tight battle. If they're going to also have Pedro to deal with, he would just be coming out in front of them. Yeah, he's a little bit further down the road, so these two are going side by side through a very, very tricky section. Looks like Craig's got the better of it done for the moment.
Seconds in the pit strategy, whether it's a 20-minute overcut, 20-minute undercut, we'll have to wait and see. Meanwhile, Jenny Tehar and Jason Baxter are fighting it out for the lead of the overall race. Baxter trying to make his way through. It'll have to be an outside line into turn 2 where a GT4 sits on the racing line. That's the number 14 that they have to negotiate their way around. But as they run through turns 2 and through turn 3, they don't have to now worry about that GT4 any longer, and can continue working their way down a long way, and it can help you build in things like GT3, maybe some prototype cars as well. But yeah, it's so impressive to see him doing so well at the front of the field. Joe Glass getting himself, his teammate I should mention, as I said. Oh, still interesting to that. That's a send from Dave Van Dam very late on the brakes into turn 1, but he's got it stopping the apex. That's an incredible move. Very, very surprising for Joe Glass to find a car on his inside there, but effective for Dave Van Dam, and he has caught Joe Glass napping.
Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, it is time for our post-round interviews. And this evening, we're going to be hearing from 3 Premier drivers. Now, we wouldn't normally just hear from one class, but we've got 3 stories, of which 2 drivers end up having 2 different sides of the same story. And we're going to come to those, James Howarth and Mathew Croft, shortly to hear about their incredible battle for 5th place all the way throughout the race. But before all that, we're going to hear from a man who's been a bit of an unsung hero today to finish 2nd overall and in the Premier class. The Vulcan Fasters by Glass Tech Racing racing driver of Nick Starb. Let's get him on in here, ladies and gentlemen, and here's a perspective on what has been an absolutely brilliant day of racing. Good evening to you, Nick, and well, what a race from yourself. A 5th place start converted into a 2nd place finish. Yes, there were some factors out there, including perhaps a long pit stop for Robin Milton and also some late difficulties for Peter Duke. For the point being, at the end of the day, you didn't put a foot wrong today and were rewarded with 2nd. I mean, how do you feel about your performance at Road Atlanta?
Bad, to be honest. The senior practice that I had, it wasn't much, of course. And the Porsche is so understeery around this track. It's such a relief to finish at first and then finish 2nd after a bad qualifying. Yeah, it's supreme. I'm really, really happy about my performance tonight.
Well, without a doubt, that happiness is shining through. And you were saying about a difficult qualifying session. What happened in qualifying?
I just couldn't turn the car. The setup we made was a bit sketchy. The ARBs just didn't do their thing. I couldn't cope with it. Even turn 5 was sketchy. I had to lift even, otherwise it wouldn't stick. So I had to compromise my lap times a bit. So it was a bit annoying, yeah.
Oh, goodness me. Not what you want, particularly a circuit where every mile per hour is so important. So a compromised qualified session and a car that doesn't want to respond. Did you make any changes before going into the race to sort of get it to talk to you? Or was it, I'm just going to have to deal with this?
Yeah, I'm just gonna deal with it. Every time I'm making changes last minute, it might screw you up, and that was the least thing I wanted tonight. So I just cope with it, and yeah, it turned out pretty good.
Well, I'd say so, but breaking it down then, talking about the early stages of the race, at the start, it looked as though the top 4 of what was the 3 Acuras and the 1 Porsche were just gradually pulling away, and it was more between yourself and Christopher Starsmore, at least for the opening few minutes. But then gradually you started to pull away and you got back onto that lead pack. How was the first stint for you?
Well, mixed. Because the first 3 laps, I was like, oh yeah, the top 4 is running away. I have to look more behind than ahead. So I stuck my head down and I was like, I'm gaining on P4 because Peter Duke lost the connection to the top 3. And then I luckily got past. And I don't know what happened to Peter, but he was gone in the fight. And after that it settled in and I was in no man's land really. 3 seconds behind, 3 seconds ahead. Yeah, it was not bad, to be honest. I could drove my own race really.
And as the race went on, being a bit of a no man's land, I mean, Road Atlanta is not a circuit that you're going to get bored at very easily, given how much you have to be on rails throughout the entirety of the lap. But was there anything you were doing perhaps to just keep your focus? Because I can imagine if you drift even slightly, you're going to end up in the wall.
Yeah, true. We were in a call and we were just chatting. I was just chilling instead of just full focus, which helps. Yeah.
Absolutely fair. And then coming on to the pit stop, did you have a particular strategy in mind, or was it a case that you improvised as you went?
No, not at all. Most of the time when I'm racing, I'm looking at my fuel halfway through the stint, and I was like, if I lift and coast a bit, I can extend maybe a lap or 2. And I know that it's good to extend your stint. Put less fuel in because your pit stop time is less. And I think that's why I got P2 in the end. Because once I got out of the pit, I was in VC. Can you check stream if I'm actually P2? Because most of the time, when there are multiple or more than 30 cars on the grid, my overlays is wrong by 1 or 2 places. But yeah, it checked and I was actually in P2 and I couldn't believe that.
I absolutely love it, and the fact that you had to get onto the team to say, can you check the stream? But yes, you were definitely in P2. And for the remainder of the race, it looked like Robin Milton was gradually catching up, but not quickly enough. Were you worried at all that he'd get close in the closing stages, or did you know the gap was going to be safe?
No, not at all. I was sweating. I was pushing like crazy as much as I could. I got lucky with traffic, I think, because most of the traffic I got was after the first sector or before the first sector. So yeah, there was not much a problem, and I saw even the gap to P1 coming down. It was after the pit, it was like 6 or 7 seconds, and 10 minutes before the start, it was 3.5. And I was like, oh, maybe I can even get P1 then. But no, unfortunately not. Not today.
Well, it wasn't quite a win, but still a second place and a well-earned one. And given the way the championship stands are looking, coming into this round you're in 8th place, but surely this is going to put you right back up in the hunt for what will be a top 5 finish this season. 4 rounds remain. Have you given yourself a target, or are you just waiting to see how it goes?
No. Once I got 2 wins, of course, in the first races the last 3 weeks, I set a new target, because my target was top 10. I changed cars, of course, after the first race, because I was in the Merc, and I switched to the Porsche, which is a 50-point reduction. And after it went so good at the 3rd and 4th race, I was like, yeah, I'm gonna change my goals. So yeah, I'm definitely aiming for that top 5 spot.
I love it, and that's definitely a great aim to have, and we look forward to seeing you chase that aim over the remainder of the season. Speaking of which, in a week's time, we head to France for the Le Mans circuit and a very wet day at Le Mans. How are you feeling for it?
Good, actually good. If we can get the setup right, which we probably can get right, I love the rain, so I should be on for a good result.
Well, I'm loving the confidence. All in the setup, of course, like you say, and we look forward to seeing whether you work out the setup to what you need on the day. But just before I do let you go, Nick, is there anybody you'd like to give a shout out or a thank you to live on the broadcast tonight?
Of course, my uncle is always watching, so massive shout out to him. And massive shout out to Marius Hibma and William Humphrey, who were in the VC, and yeah, we were just talking and vibing, which helps a lot.
Well, Nick, a big thank you to you as well for joining me this evening for an interview. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you join me. And whilst it wasn't a win to make it 3 wins this season, still a second place earned in a car that didn't want to exactly drive the way you wanted it to today. And I can only imagine if you get the setup right at Le Mans, could we be speaking to you in a week or two's time with regards to another win under your belt? Well, that's for the future. But for now, we'll leave you to it. Have a great rest of your evening, and we'll see you in a week's time.
Awesome. Thank you. Bye-bye.
So here and there, ladies and gentlemen, from Vulcan Fasteners by Glass Tech Racing's Nick Stubb, the Premier driver, who today definitely put on a Premier performance. And interesting to hear him there talking about the fact that his car did not want to work with him in qualifying. The fact plenty of understeer in the car, naturally the Porsche wanting to understeer at Road Atlanta based on his observations and not being able to dial it out. So qualifying for him was horrible, but horrible to take 5th on the grid. That shows you the level of performance that he expects from himself and the car and the team from round to round. And of course that victory in the first race of the day at the Circuit of the Americas demonstrating what the 169 driver is going for. But still, qualifying aside, in the first half of the race in that opening stint, talking about being in no man's land and the fact the lead pack pulled off, he was able to break away from the pack behind and really in a bit of a lonely race for so long. But then the pit stop came. Nailed the pit stop, went long, saved some fuel, and therefore that enabled him to come out in second place, but having to do a bit of a reality check or a pinch me at my dreaming moment in realising he was in second and able to bring up the race home. And with results like these that mean that his target of trying to finish in the top 5 come the end of the season is becoming more and more a reality with each and every lap turned. And we'll be interested to see just how far he can chase that dream as this season goes on. But now we come to our second interview, ladies and gentlemen, and we're going to be hearing from one side of a coin. In the fact, it was the coin in the battle for 5th place, and coming up heads in the end was none other than James Howarth as he gets ready to join me in the interview room, and we're going to be hearing the story of what was that incredible fight for 5th place between the two of them. But as he does join me now, well, I can imagine he's had a bit of a breather, but here he joins me. James, good evening to you, and well, if we had to ask you to sum up that battle for 5th place in a single word, what would it be?
Nerve-wracking.
Well, I'll let you get away from that one. Let's say those 2 words are hyphenated together to make it 1 word. But what a drive from yourself and what a brilliant battle. I mean, I can imagine that whilst you've been waiting, you've probably been talking to Mathew Croft, who we'll hear from shortly, about that battle and how close it was.
Yeah, we were just laughing and joking, and he was saying that in turn 1, he was just leaving me, and then ever since up until turn 7, I was just right up his rear, and he just couldn't shake me off. So it was just literally a tug of war each lap.
Well, a brilliant tug-of-war battle, but to get all the way to that, we have to wind things back a little bit to qualifying. An 8th place in qualifying, and a Ford Mustang that can go quite well at Road Atlanta, but I get the feeling that today might have been a day of compromises with a car that loves the straights but doesn't like direction changes.
See, for me, with my setup today, it was the complete opposite. It loved to turn in. I had the confidence to just whack it in. But on the straights, I felt really vulnerable in the clean air. I had a battle with Jan at the first half of the stint, which he was slowing me up. Quite, not massively, but it was getting rather infuriating on my part. But I just kept me cool to a certain extent, found the gap, and then just carried on with the rest of the race.
And just on that, as we're looking back at some of the pictures, you battling and chasing with what was Jan Østberg early on, it looked as though that Porsche just had a bit of an answer to everything you could do, and the pack behind was getting closer and closer. Were you thinking about potentially changing strategy in order to get through?
I was just catching him at the wrong times, and obviously Rob was behind me at that point, one of my sister team, and he was like, "Yep, you are catching him at the wrong time, but you've got to pick your moment, try and put him under that bit more pressure than what he's used to." And luckily he made the mistake coming out of the S's in turn 5, and I just made it stick.
Well, you made it stick with a great move, and then as the race went on, of course, this really set the tone for what was to come in the fact the battle had gone on for so long, the leaders had pulled away, and then suddenly you find yourself having to do a battle with Mathew Croft initially, and then Peter Duke also ends up in the mix.
Yeah, he does, because obviously he was battling at the top end. I think it was like the top 3, I believe. And as soon as he comes into the pit, I'm like, right, let's just see where I've come out in reference to him. And as soon as I come out of the pits, he's 1 point, I think he's like 2 seconds behind me. And I'm like, right, what's gone off here? So let's just buckle down, head down, try and get the pace back into the tyres, get the confidence back, and just ran my race. And then luckily the back markers played a little part in making me catch up with Mathew, and then the fun battle began.
And speaking of the fun battle, it looked as though the two of you were absolutely equal in terms of laps you could deliver, and it was all going to come down to some daring moves in the end, and you opted to be daring by going around the outside at turn number 6, and that started off what would happen after.
Yeah, me and Mathew were obviously discussing it as well, and obviously Peter were like a couple of seconds back, and coming up to turn 7, Peter just flashes his headlights and say, "Hello boys, I'm here." And then next lap, I think Mathew were on the inside, I was still on the outside. Pete obviously thought there was a gap, but unfortunately he just lost the rear end under heavy braking, I think.
Well, it's a huge moment, and it really defined what was the rest of the battle, with you being able to just gradually pull away to a 5th place finish in the end. But still, absolutely thrilling all the way through. And I can imagine for the closing stage of the race after that, you might have been driving a Mustang that definitely just wanted to be rested. The tyres might have been a bit hot, as were the brakes, and the driver, of course.
Yeah, the rear was arguing with me at some points in the last 3 or 4 laps, but I managed to tame the tank and just nestled her home.
When bringing it home, another 5th place finish, and it's all adding up gradually as the season goes on. We've got 4 rounds remaining, and it's looking as though, at least there's Ford Mustang, it could be a chase for a top 10 finish in the championship.
Let's hope so. But I'm not looking forward to Le Mans next week, so looks like I'll be getting the practice in as much as possible in the wet.
And I presume it is because of the wet conditions that you might not be looking forward to next week, or is Le Mans a bit of a bogey circuit for you in general?
It's just the conditions. This car really hates a slippery surface, so it's not the track itself, because I am quite confident on that track, but it is the conditions.
I see. Well, still, challenging conditions lie ahead, but also plenty of practice perhaps, and we look forward to seeing how you can make it all come together at Le Mans. But just before we do let you go, James, is there anybody you'd like to give a shout out or a thank you to live on the broadcast?
Yourself again for another amazing stream, the DXT family, Jan, Mathew for the battles, and obviously the other half, Laura.
Well, James, it's been an absolute pleasure as always having you join me. Congratulations once again on a fantastic 5th place performance, and one that was very hard earned at the end of the day. Le Mans may not be around you're looking forward to in a week's time, but still, we look forward to seeing you there and what you could achieve in challenging conditions. But until then, have a great rest of your evening and rest up. You've definitely earned it.
Yeah, cheers, mate. You too.
So hearing there from James Howarth, ladies and gentlemen, the DXT Motorsports driver who sounds absolutely exhausted, and well, you can understand why. And interest in the fact that in the end, the way the Mustang was set up, normally we objectify it as being a car that's strong in the straights but weak in rapid-fire direction changes. And funny enough, dialing it the complete opposite way in the car today in terms of setting the car up for all the corners, but not on the straight. And that's why we saw this Mustang look very good towards the front of the field, but it wasn't able to run cars down on the straights, nor was it able to break away from them. But still, that meant we had some brilliant fighting. Firstly, with what was the Porsche of Jan Usberg that we're seeing the pictures of currently earlier on in the race, where in the end, Howarth had to sit behind it for the best part of 27 minutes before the strategy finally undone was this battle. And then later on, of course, with what was Mathew Croft gradually being brought back to what was the menacing glances of James Howarth's Mustang. Well, that fight for 5th got underway, and with Peter Duke also getting into the fray, well, a three-way fight only ended when Croft and Duke came to blows. But for James Howarth, well, I don't think he's complaining at that, because a 5th place finish and a chase for a top 10 in the championship table come the end of the season is looking ever brighter. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, we now come to your final interview of the day, and we're going to be hearing from Mathew Croft, and as he gets ready to join me, not just a fast racer today, but also an absolutely brilliant sportsman, and we're going to talk about that as well as he gets ready to join me in the interview room and hear his side on what was a superb battle, and I think one of the massive highlights of this season so far as he joins me now. Well, good evening to you, Mathew, and well, I mean, there's plenty of ways we could describe your race today. We could describe it as fast, frantic, but also we could describe it as perhaps one of the best demonstrations of sportsmanship in a single round of racing. But putting all that aside for a moment, how are you feeling after perhaps the most intense battle we've seen on circuit so far this season?
Pretty disappointed, not going to lie. Qualified third, which I was absolutely over the moon with, but as I said to you previously, I am far too harsh on the car, and I pushed the car far too hard in corners, coming on throttle too early. And I just started with great pace, then dropped, then dropped, then dropped, and it just kept heating the car up and just turned the tyres to soup. And I was just too hard on it, and I'd lost so many places. And then trying to fight a few people late on, it's just in the dirty air, just trying to keep it under control and just losing the products. Disappointed in my performance, to be honest with you.
As unfortunately, you're a bit disappointed in your performance, but still, talking about some of the positive parts, that qualifying lap for third, it looked as though it was a lap where you got everything you could out of the car and also got the most out of the road Atlanta circuit. I mean, how was qualifying for you? Did it feel right?
Yeah, car felt great, to be fair. A little bit sketchy on, say, T1 and T4 into 5. Those flat-out corners of the heat, it just... on the exit, just the back end twitching on the Porsche a little bit, but it felt pretty decent. I enjoyed it. I was actually on for even quicker lap in my last qualifying until I hit a massive curb and pushed the car out wide and got an off track. And I was like, that's it. I'll have to settle. In fact, I was actually second, so I was like, I'll settle for second. And I was sat there waiting. I can't remember who it was. Put a lap in and just nicked second off me right at the last minute. I was thinking, honestly, I thought I had second because. Having second on the inside would be perfect, but not meant to be. Third was good. In fact, I can't be too disappointed because it's the best qualifying I've done this season, so third of all, I'll do. I don't think I'd know what I'd do if I get first.
Well, definitely a great qualifying performance, and your strongest of the season, if not your strongest so far. And, well, I can imagine if you do get pole position at one day, we're going to have to get you back in here to hear how you react to that fault. Still, putting that aside, a great qualifying session. Race start. Starting on the outside at third place, and it looked as though in the opening couple of laps you were relegated to sitting back in what was the fight for 5th place instead, with 3 Acuras and a Porsche running off, and you're finding yourself locking horns with Christopher Starsmore.
Yeah, just me and Chris texting before the race, and we were actually chatting quite a fair bit recently. We're really close on pace in pretty much every single race we've been having. So as soon as I saw him on review mirror, I was like, this is going to be an interesting one. It was really good. I think at least half the race, me and him were on pace, perfect pace, but he just kept going and kept going. I said, yeah, just keep dropping 100% every lap, keep dropping, and then you get in your own head, and you're braking late because you think that's your problem. It's not, or I changed the strategy halfway through as well because I was dropping gears too much, over rotating the car, and then trying to come out the corners, lighting the wheels up, which caused myself more problems. So I was changing a little bit earlier, and then keeping in a higher gear for most corners, and that started working for me. But I'm just far too aggressive. Starsmore just disappeared on it. I was quite surprised actually because I was 6-7 before the pit stop, and I thought I'm gonna have to settle for 6 and 7. But I came out of pits and everything settled. I was back to 4th, thinking somebody messed up some pit stops or somebody had some accidents while I was in there. It was absolutely fantastic. I thought, yes, 4th, this is it. I can do it. And then proceeded to repeat what I was previously doing and back down to 6 and 7.
Well, you may have repeated the struggles and overheating the tyres and being a bit aggressive, but what followed afterwards was some absolutely jaw-dropping racing between yourself and firstly it was James Howarth. I mean, just take us through the two-way fight between the two of you, because he was in a Mustang that definitely was set up for the corners, and goodness me, you two would go too wide through some corners where most wouldn't dare to dream to.
Yeah, it was really good racing actually. The pace we had, I started understanding where he was faster. So T1, I was much better in T1, right up his back of the car, and then 2, 3, 4, he'd just disappear through the S's. Then I'd get back at 5, and then right at the hairpin, I'd get back on his bumper, and I just couldn't get in front of him. And then the last section, he'd just pull away from me slightly, and then we'd rinse and repeat, and it'd be that exact sort of. And then I think 2 laps before I let him by again, I think he messed up T6, went out real wide, squirmy, and I managed to go around his outside and get him, and then I returned the favour following that. But what really got me is we were fighting, and I was in the zone with him. I couldn't care who was in front of us, couldn't care who was behind us, and then suddenly come round to the main straight, and it was like Paul just appeared. I was like, hello, where did that car come from? And then we were three abreast on the main straight. I was thinking, oh my god, where's this guy come from? We're now got to fight, all 3 of us, and yeah, that made it quite interesting in the last 3 laps. But I was white flag came out, and I was like, okay, this isn't too bad. I've got P5 white flag, and then it all went big Tom, and I lost 2 spots. So.
Now, with regards to things going wrong to a degree in your battle with Peter Jute, he looked up the inside into turns 6 and 7 in the closing stages. We weren't quite sure on the camera whether there was contact or not. From your experience, was there contact between the 2 of you?
In all honesty, I was on the inside. I was there from the start. He knew I was there, and he turned in. And I think more room could have been made. But at the time, you're racing, so you just sort of get on with it and just race. And I think he came across me a little bit. I think there was contact, and it spun him out. And I'm second in the championship right now. After this, I think I'm going to be 3rd. So the last thing I need is more license points. If I get a quality ban next race, that would really, really hurt me. So I thought, what, if it is my fault, I'll give it back. If it's not my fault, oh well, it's good sportsmanship. These things happen. It's just one place. So, and it was real fast throughout the entire race. So, whatever. It's only one place. I can get it back next race.
Well, that's actually true, and I think many will appreciate the sportsmanship from yourself, and I love the mentality as well, which is I can always get the place back in the next race, and that's what we look forward to, is you attacking into what is round number 7. Speaking of which, you're taking the 7th place here today, but I suspect you're looking for plenty more at Le Mans in a week's time. How are you feeling for a trip to a rather wet and rainy French circuit?
Well, experience this season, I'm liking the rain. I like the rain for some reason. So the only problem is I don't know the track, so I haven't put a tyre on the track yet. I need to get on the track and learn it a little bit. But yeah, I like the rain. I like being a little bit more cautious in the rain, and I seem to have really decent pace. So wet weather doesn't bother me whatsoever. Porsche tends to behave as well. I just need to learn the track a little bit more. It's not a horrendous amount of track to learn. There's a lot of straights, a lot of sweeping corners, so it's not as if it's mega technical, but you can lose a lot of time from messing, say, the chicanes up or something like that. You mess one of the chicanes up, you can lose a second easy. So it's just learning those, making sure I drive clean. I don't think with this race we need to be driving fast. It needs to be consistent and clean. I think I'm really hoping for. I ain't got to win this season, so that's my goal.
Well, we definitely look forward to seeing whether you can achieve that goal of securing a win in what is a week's time. But just before we do let you go, is there anybody you'd like to give a shout out or a thank you to live on the broadcast tonight?
Yeah, certainly. The guys at Axel Simsport, absolutely been fantastic with me since joining them at the start of the season. All the help in the world, setups, advice, stops and everything. They're absolutely fantastic. And we all sit in the chat with each other as we race and we chat about it and, what's your strategy, how you getting on, things like that. And yeah, it's a good bunch of lads. And the other person would yet again be my sister, who yet again watches every single race, chants and cheers me on every single race. So yeah, just want to thank them guys.
Well, Matthew, we need to give a thank you to you for joining me for an interview this evening, and great to hear your perspective on what's a challenging day today, but also enjoying the battling between yourself and James Howarth and Peter Duke. And, well, I think you've definitely gained quite a few fans as a result of how you've driven today, and we look forward to plenty more from yourself at Le Mans in a week's time, and whether you can take that first win of the season that you're chasing. But until then, have a great rest of your evening, rest up, you've earned the rest, no doubt about it, and we will see you again in a week's time.
See you soon, fella. Thank you very much.
So here and there, ladies and gentlemen, from Mathew Croft, the Premier driver from ZX Simsport. So you can hear in his voice quite disappointed with his performance today, and you can appreciate why in the fact that he's got all the pace in qualifying, perhaps couldn't take pole position, but was very happy with the third place. But in the race, drove well at the start, but very quickly, in his opinion, his own words, pushing the car too hard, pushing himself deeper and deeper into corners, and really taking the life out of the car and falling backwards off the leaders. And it's very easy to do, particularly when you want to try and chase down a car that's just in front of you. But in the end, in pushing too hard, the Z-Axis Simsports driver really relegated his race to being a fight for what would be to just be inside the top 5 or a fight for 5th. Enjoying the run between himself and Christopher Starsmore. We're seeing those pictures on screen currently in the background, whereby Starsmore close, but not quite close enough to look for a move. But then after the pit stops, coming back out in 4th, and then suddenly realising that he repeated the mistakes of old on the first stint and fell backwards into the fight for 5th. Still, we saw a brilliant battle as a result from it. Great respect being shown between all three drivers. Unfortunate how it ended, and well, whether it's a racing incident or whether there's blame to be apportioned, Mathew deciding to take the approach of giving the place up, particularly wary of the fact not wanting to pick up licence points and not wanting to incur the wrath of the stewards, and then he wants to keep his championship momentum. Coming into this round in second place in the championship, he will fall to what will be third place in the championship as a result of Christopher Starsmore finishing in 4th place, but still there's plenty of rounds to go, and for Mathew Croft, there's a spirit that isn't dying out, and with it being a wet race at Le Mans next week, or 2 wet races we should say, I get the feeling we could see the ZX Simsports driver right back where he wants to be, and that is chasing victory, much like at Road America. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, that concludes our interviews for this evening. And it has been a premier pack of interviews. Started off with Nick Stubb for Vulcan Fasters by Glass Tech Racing. We then heard from James Howard for DXT Motorsports. And last but not least, we just heard from Z-Axis Simsports' Mathew Croft. Congratulations to all three of them on their performances. A big thank you to them all for joining us in the interview room. And well, of course, next week, ladies and gentlemen, we will try and bring you interviews from 3 Evo drivers out of politeness and fairness, as it is the fact that we've got stories to tell up and down the grid. And we've had an all-Premier day today, so I think we're going to try and have an all-Evo day at Le Mans. But with that, it is now time for us to wrap up. Thank you very much for watching, and if you have enjoyed today's show, and perhaps you're sat there right now wanting to be on the grid or wanting to know more about Evolution Sim Racing or something in between, well, do keep in mind this has been our Thursday GT3 Championship evening as powered by Trophy AI, but we've also got plenty of other racing ongoing if GT3s aren't necessary for you here at Evolution Sim Racing, because on Sunday evenings, we have the European GT Championship, and that alternates weekly with the Danny Lee GT Omega Porsche Cup, the DLPC, as proudly brought to you in collaboration with Danny Lee and GT Omega, and well, that's definitely been taking the world by storm, that Porsche Cup series. But if you're not looking to be on the grid for a paid-for league, or perhaps you just want to join us for a little bit of practice every so often, well, we do have multiple practice leagues available which run on Tuesday evenings and Saturdays in the afternoon, and those are free to join as well. And there's never been a better time to be on the grid at Evolution Sim Racing. And for all that and more, in order to find out what all the detail and all the fuss is about at Evolution Sim Racing, you can use the QR code or the link on screen to join the official Discord, and there you'll be faced with an absolutely welcoming community that will make you feel at home. Whether you're based in the UK or further abroad, it doesn't matter where you come from, you've got a home at Evolution Sim Racing. But also, we'd like to take a moment to say a big thank you to our series and league sponsors, including Trophy.ai, Virtual Racing School, that's VRS, Carme or More Than Technology, the GP2 Group, and also would like to say a big thank you to Motorsport UK's esports division for allowing us to be recognised as a recommended community, and a big thank you to Motorsport UK. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, attention now turns to round number 7 of the championship, and of course it is going to be a visit to France for the Circuit des 24 du Mans, also known in short as Le Mans, and in round 7 on the Thursday the 15th of May 2025, get your brollies ready, because it is going to be a wet day racing over 2 30-minute sprint races, and in the Premier class, it looks as though Ricardo Luiz Pereira has returned to the top in terms of taking victory at a critical time, although he was put under major pressure from Robin Milton on his debut today. And can Milton return to the race next week and potentially secure his first win of the season in only his second round? We'll have to see. As meanwhile, in what is the rest of the field of the Premier class, is going to be the question of who is going to be the lead challenger. Will it be Mathew Croft? Will it be Christopher Starsmore? Or could some other names, including Peter Duke, come to the fray? Whereas in the Evo class, meanwhile, will Wesley Van Rens today return to assert himself to a second place finish, with Steve Rubino back on the charge and Grant Miller in third? Well, Van Rens and Miller will be very close on points, and Steve Rubino is starting to gain some championship momentum. And has he left it too late to charge, or could he suddenly make himself a third member of that championship fight? For all that and more, in order to continue the story, you'll have to tune in next week. But until then, we've been Evolution Sim Racing. I've been your host and commentator, Paul TX141 Walsh, also known as Britain a Split, depending on what media you follow me on. And until next time, from all of us here at Split B, ladies and gentlemen, have a great rest of your evening. Remember to stay safe, stay well, stay smiling, and most importantly, as always, remember to stay on track. Good night.
For the upcoming right-hander, brake 30 meters later and ease off the pressure.
Are you spending a lot of time looking for setups and struggling for faster lap times? Are you tired of searching online for answers? Would you like to get setups, analysis and tutorials from some of the best sim racers in the world like Ralph Alla, Mitchell de Jong, Martin Krunker, Josh Rogers and many more? If so, virtualracingschool.com is the answer you've been looking for. VRS data packs provide hot laps from our professional coaches for you to analyse and replicate. They provide tutorials that walk you through the fastest laps and what the pros did to achieve the best times. And they provide the setups you need to ensure your car is competitive in both oval and road racing. If you're ready to get faster and reach more podiums sooner than later, just go to virtualracingschool.com and sign up for a free account today.